Chapter 946. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. Lin Tian was really a little surprised. After the jade stone broke down and entered his life essence, its effect was too great. It was much more amazing than the life crystal back then. They could not be compared. With his current cultivation of the eighth heaven of the Great Path, this jade stone could actually make his life essence continue to strengthen. His essence, chi, spirit, and cultivation were all rising rapidly. Such a piece of jade stone had such amazing effects. He faintly believed that this might really be a real celestial stone condensed from illusory fate. Buzz! His body trembled slightly. After the jade stone merged with his life essence, it became even brighter. At this time, majestic power overflowed again, quickly pouring into every corner of his body, causing the golden divine light outside his body to become thicker and thicker. Even his hair was dyed with a layer of golden brilliance. His entire body seemed to be cast from gold, and his aura was astonishing. And with this vast and mighty divine light, his cultivation rose even faster. His powerful blood chi almost penetrated the firmament. This brat! In the distance, Wishing Crocodile was dumbfounded. Lin Tian's essence, chi, spirit, and cultivation were rising too quickly. At this time, Lin Tian was in the middle of the dazzling golden divine light. In the void beside him, golden lotuses swayed, sacred and auspicious, making him seem unapproachable. It was as if a celestial king had reappeared in the world. He stood there and slowly put away the shock in his heart. He forced himself to calm down and operated the Sun Heart Sutra. He seriously refined the power of the jade stone that overflowed from his life essence, causing his strength in all aspects to increase rapidly. Buzz! He stood in the mountain with his eyes slightly closed. The golden light outside his body intertwined, and then a faint light of the way flickered. This light of the way was very peaceful at first, but in the blink of an eye, it became thicker, as if a sea of the way was churning. This? Lin Tian had just calmed down, but now he was shocked again. At this moment, with the Sun Heart Sutra refining the power of the jade stone that overflowed from the origin of life, his great Tao suddenly began to boil rapidly, like a volcano that had been dormant for a long time erupting. The situation was horrifying. Such a situation had never occurred before. Even when he comprehended the Tao inside of the Emperor, it was far from comparable to this. The boiling degree of the laws of the Grand Tao had far exceeded his imagination and control. As the laws of the Great Path boiled like this, the Tao power in his body began to expand. A terrifying force surged out, directly shattering a large space around him. Even the ground beneath his feet cracked, quickly spreading in all directions. In the distance, the whooshing crocodile flapped its wings and retreated. The shock in its eyes became even stronger. At this moment, Lin Tian's power of the Great Tao had swelled to a frightening level. In just a short moment, it had already doubled in size. This shocked the whooshing crocodile to no end. Boom! In this space, a violent wind swept through, and the Tao light rolled like waves, almost drowning all directions. Lin Tian felt all of this and was shocked. He felt as if his body was about to burst from the rapidly expanding laws of the Great Tao. He didn't dare to slack off at all and hurriedly devoted 90% of his energy to his own laws of the Great Tao. He began to integrate himself into his own laws of the Great Tao, seriously regulating his breathing, sorting out and comprehending. As he seriously regulated his breathing, the laws of the Great Tao in his body gradually calmed down. However, they were still expanding and growing at an astonishing speed. It was as if he was a cultivator who had consumed the forbidden Baodan to increase his strength. He circulated the Sun Heart Sutra over and over again, silently regulating his breathing and sorting out his laws of the Great Tao. The Tao light outside his body became stronger and stronger, and the laws of the Great Tao in his body became purer and purer. In the blink of an eye, several hours passed. At this time, although the Tao light outside his body was still boiling, it was much calmer than before. It was also at this time that his life source trembled slightly, and his sea of consciousness was in turmoil, causing his divine sense to suddenly appear in a hazy and boundless world. This world was still the same world that he used to comprehend his own laws of the great Tao. In this world, there were beautiful rivers and majestic mountains. Strands of Tao light flickered, giving people a feeling of vastness. "It's here again," he softly muttered to himself. His divine sense stood in this world, and he knew that this world did not really exist. It was just a kind of Tao realm that his laws of the great Tao had evolved, so he was not surprised. Moreover, his divine sense had entered this world several times already, so he was not unfamiliar with this world at all. At this time in this world, he thought about the jade stone that had fused into his life source. He was already completely sure that the jade stone was the stone of destiny that Wishing Crocodile had mentioned in the unofficial history book. It was only beneficial to him. He pondered for a moment. After he was truly sure of this, he was first slightly shocked, but then he gradually calmed down. After all, he had been shocked for a long time. He shook his head slightly and began to look at this world. This was a world that had evolved from his laws of the great Tao. He had to seriously gaze at this world and comprehend his own laws of the great Tao. Using his divine sense to gaze at this world and carefully perceive everything in this world, he was comprehending his own laws of the great Tao. He silently looked at this world and only felt that this world had become even vaster, vast and boundless. He resided in this world, and just like in the past, he watched the sun rise and set, watched the plants wither and grow again. The only difference was that when he came here this time, his perception of these scenes was clearly much clearer, and it was like a dark cloud had been pushed aside. There is the principle of the cycle of all things, but more importantly, it seems that all things always have the opportunity to be born, and will never fall and wither. He softly muttered to himself. He looked at these scenes, and his understanding of them was much clearer than before, but he still did not know what laws of the great Tao were. And regarding this, after being puzzled several times, he was very calm and did not care at this time. His divine sense interweaved in this space, condensing into his figure, looking at the mountains, looking at the rivers, looking at everything. The sun rose and set, and the 4 seasons alternated. At the bottom of a mountain, he saw a white rabbit slowly jump down from a large yellow rock. Then, almost in the next moment, the yellow rock collapsed together with the ground below, and a bottomless black hole appeared. The white rabbit was safe and sound, and did not even look back as it slowly walked into the distance. He walked through an old forest and saw a mountain deer drinking by a river. After a while, the mountain deer slowly left. The calm river suddenly boiled, and the mountain torrents erupted. In an instant, everything on both sides of the river was submerged. He passed by a large mountain, and there was an eagle's nest in the mountain. The moment the eagle flapped its wings and left the nest to look for food, the entire mountain collapsed, crushing the nest into pieces, leaving only the eagle flapping its wings in the sky. This is fate? Fate? Looking at these scenes, Lin Tian was moved. The moment the white rabbit stepped over the rock sank with the ground, and the bottom of the black hole could not be seen. The moment the mountain deer turned around to drink, the mountain flood erupted, drowning everything. The moment the eagle left the nest, the mountain collapsed, crushing the eagle's nest. It was just a casual and simple movement, yet they had brushed shoulders with death. He couldn't help but be moved by this. This was definitely luck. My Tao was affected by that piece of jade? He was puzzled and puzzled. He pondered, but it was difficult for him to understand. In the end, he could only shake his head and silently stare at this world as usual. His divine sense was in this world, and in the following time, he continuously saw similar scenes, reflecting and comprehending them one by one. Then, in this world, the light of the Tao became more sparkling, and there were even Tao rainbows that appeared in many places. Buzz. At the same time, in reality, the golden divine light outside his body became more resplendent, and the light of the great Tao became more intense. In this way, time passed quickly, and in the blink of an eye, 2 months had passed. On this day, the golden divine light and the divine light of the great Tao outside Lin Tian's body became extremely intense. Then, the space between his eyebrows also shone brightly, and there was an astonishing surge of divine power that quickly calmed down. In the next moment, he opened his eyes, and the light of the Tao intertwined in his eyes, crystal clear and hazy, like a great river of divine light. "The 9 levels of the great Tao," he said to himself. For 2 months, he stood motionless in the mountains, silently refining the power of the jade stone that had integrated into his body. He cultivated the Sun Heart Sutra and comprehended his own Tao. At this moment, he broke through again and stepped into the 9 levels of the great Tao. At this time, he used his divine sense to look inside his body. The jade stone had been completely refined, and his life origin had also calmed down. It was brighter and more resplendent than 2 months ago, and it had completed another great sublimation and become even stronger. He gently clenched his hands, and suddenly there was a burst of sound like beans being fried. There was a faint light of the Tao intertwining on the surface of his body, and it was twice as strong as 2 months ago. There was an astonishing divine power of the great Tao permeating the air, and it was very frightening. At the same time, he clearly felt that his blood and qi had risen a lot, and his physique had become stronger. His divine sense had become more powerful, and the divine power in his body was rolling like a golden ocean, as if there would never be a time when it would be exhausted. Good! His eyes were intertwined with a bright light, and he was a little excited. At this time, his strength in all aspects had risen greatly, and he was much, much stronger than 2 months ago. Boy, how is it? In the distance, Wishing Crocodile saw Lin Tian open his eyes and move, and immediately shouted at Lin Tian. Lin Tian raised his head and looked at Wishing Crocodile in the distance, and said, "Everything is good, very good." With a smile on his face, he walked towards Wishing Crocodile. However, in the next moment, his whole body trembled violently, and his sea of consciousness suddenly shook greatly. A shocking image suddenly appeared, and his divine sense seemed to have been pulled out of his body in an instant, and he came to a vast battlefield in the starry sky. In this battlefield, he saw huge stars exploding one after another, and black holes appearing horizontally. A blood-soaked figure charged in the starry sky, and his aura was strong enough to swallow mountains and rivers. He went against a pair of huge eyes and shattered a large part of the starry sky with one punch. Ah! The blood-soaked figure roared angrily, and the Tao of heaven and earth boiled. The starry sky collapsed, and everything around him was destroyed. In the end, only that pair of huge eyes were left, deep and boundless, and cold and emotionless. The image collapsed here, and Lin Tian's powerful body couldn't help but tremble violently, and he coughed up a mouthful of essence blood on the spot. Chapter 947. Genius remembers love in 1 second/small? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. Lin Tian coughed up blood. His body trembled violently, and his face turned pale. Just now, the scene that suddenly appeared in his sea of consciousness was too terrifying. It appeared out of nowhere like a dream, but it was so real. He actually saw people fighting in the starry sky, and they actually shattered stars with the rays of their hands. What level of combat power was that? In this world, could anyone fight in the starry sky? And that pair of huge eyes. Thinking of those eyes, his body trembled involuntarily, and a trace of fear rose instinctively. Just what kind of creature could have such huge pupils? The stars in the starry sky were like dust in front of it. Just a pair of eyes, and it almost occupied the entire universe. What's going on? What is that? His body couldn't help but tremble slightly. With a whoosh, the Wishing Crocodile stepped over from afar. Its expression changed slightly as it stared at Lin Tian now. Kid, what's wrong with you? Did you get a Tao injury because of a mistake in your enlightenment? Just a moment ago, it saw that Lin Tian was fine, and his aura was very strong. But suddenly it saw Lin Tian coughing up blood. This change was too sudden, and it moved it. I'm fine. Lin Tian now. At this time, his mind was filled with the scene that he saw in his mind. It was too terrifying, and it terrified him. Hearing his words and seeing his shocked expression, the whooshing crocodile couldn't help but be suspicious. You really didn't get a Dao injury? Then why did you suddenly vomit blood? Also, what do you mean by that blank and shocked expression of yours? Lin Tian thought about the scene that he saw in his mind, and his heart palpitated. But he could naturally hear the whooshing crocodile's words, and he could sense everything around him. He shook his head and said the same two words. I'm fine. As he spoke, he wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, took a deep breath, and used the Sun Heart Sutra to force himself to calm down. Even so, there was still unconcealable shock in the depths of his eyes, and he couldn't help but frown deeply. He just stood there, thinking about the scene that suddenly appeared in his sea of consciousness. After dozens of breaths, he still had no clue. He didn't understand why such a terrifying scene suddenly appeared in his sea of consciousness. He couldn't figure it out at all. Love go little say netu chu. Let's leave this place first, he said to Wishing Crocodile. As he walked out of the mountain, he couldn't help but think about that starry sky scene. Wishing Crocodile curled its lips, flapped its 5-colored wings, and followed. You brat, you must be hiding something. As it spoke, it didn't ask any more questions, because after scanning Lin Tian, it clearly felt that there was a great change in Lin Tian. He's reached the 9 heavens of the Great Path? It stared at Lin Tian with a shocked expression. It felt that Lin Tian's aura was much stronger than it was 2 months ago. Lin Tian nodded. Yes, I'm close to the middle of the 9 heavens of the Great Path. It's all thanks to that immortal stone, he said to Wishing Crocodile. The unofficial history you read should be correct. That should be something substantial condensed from fate. The reason he was able to be so sure was because of the most crucial proof. After he refined and absorbed the jade, he'd seen numerous scenes that were related to karmic luck and fate when he comprehended the laws of the grand Tao within him. At this time, when he said this, his mind was still recalling the scene of the starry sky battlefield that he saw in his sea of consciousness. However, he had calmed down a lot, and the shock in his eyes had almost disappeared. It's really something condensed from fate. This is really... Wishing Crocodile murmured. At first, although it said that the jade stone was the immortal stone of fate and told Lin Tian the contents of the unofficial history it had read, it wasn't very sure. However, at this moment, after Lin Tian refined that jade stone, he said with certainty that the jade stone was a substantial condensed from fate. This made it feel waves of surprise. It looked at Lin Tian and asked curiously, Boy, after refining it, other than cultivation, what other changes did you experience? The value of a substantial immortal stone condensed from fate was immeasurable. Even a flawless heavenly treasure couldn't compare to it. Now that Lin Tian had refined such a piece of immortal stone of fate, it naturally wanted to know its specific effects. This was because on the surface, it only sensed that Lin Tian's cultivation had increased by a small level. It wasn't very clear about the rest. My cultivation has increased by a small level, my life origin has been refined again, and my soul has improved by leaps and bounds. Most importantly, my great path nomological laws have more than doubled in strength. In addition, my physique, divine sense, blood qi, and so on have also improved greatly. Lin Tian Andao. The 5-element crocodile's eyes instantly opened wide when he heard this. The changes to his physique, divine sense, and vital energy weren't bad, but the most shocking thing was that after refining the rock of karmic luck, Lin Tian's life quintessence had actually improved once more after he refined the life crystal, and his soul had improved by leaps and bounds. Moreover, the laws of the Grand Tao had become more than 2 times stronger. This was too shocking. Before Lin Tian refined the immortal stone of fate, he was at the 8th level of the Great Path. At this level of cultivation, his life origin had improved again, his soul had improved by leaps and bounds, and his great path nomological laws had more than doubled in strength. Just thinking about this kind of improvement was a little scary. It felt that even a half-step emperor would be shocked if they heard it. If this is really the case, then you can definitely kill a first-level enlightenment cultivator easily now. It was a little shocked. Lin Tian's combat strength was originally extremely strong. Now that such a big change had occurred, the increase in his combat strength would naturally be very terrifying. Lin Tian nodded. Yes. He was clearer than anyone about his own changes. Now, he could clearly feel the majestic battle power flowing in his body. He could easily kill a cultivator in the first layer of Enlightenment Realm. He could also kill a cultivator in the second layer of Enlightenment Realm with a little effort. Even if he faced a cultivator in the third layer of Enlightenment Realm, he would not be defeated if he used all his strength. Whooshing Crocodile stared and gritted its teeth. Damn pervert! His luck is really good. He can actually find the immortal stone condensed by fate. As it spoke, it suddenly had a face full of doubts and asked Lin Tianandao. Speaking of which, how did you know that there was such an immortal stone of fate hidden under the Five Immortals' Peak after a trip to the desolate god Mausoleum? Thinking about this at this time, it really felt a little strange. I suddenly thought of it, Lin Tian said casually. Whooshing Crocodile gritted its teeth. Obviously, it was very dissatisfied with this answer, but it did not continue to ask. Next time, I will also find an immortal stone of fate. It gritted its teeth. Lin Tian did not say anything and walked out of the mountain. His mind was still thinking about the scene of the starry sky battlefield that suddenly appeared in his sea of consciousness. From time to time, he would frown. This was really because the blood-soaked figure and the pair of huge eyes were too shocking. They actually fought in the starry sky universe, making it difficult for him to forget in a short period of time. Soon, several hours passed. At this time, he and Whooshing Crocodile had already left the mountain far away and were walking casually along the main road. There were many people coming and going around the main road, and there were many cultivators. Naturally, some people noticed them, and their faces immediately changed. It's that man! Some cultivators stared at Lin Tian and were shocked. Along with this exclamation, many cultivators in the vicinity immediately looked over. Then, when they saw Lin Tian, all of their faces changed. Many of them even hurriedly retreated to the sides of the main road, looking at Lin Tian with a fearful expression. 2 months ago, Lin Tian had destroyed the grand competition of the younger generation of the 5 great immortal sects, including the Coiling Dragon Sacred Sect. He had also killed the strongest young experts of the 5 great immortal sects, and the great Tao Realm elders who went to the grand competition. This news had spread, and many cultivators already knew about it. At this moment, when they saw Lin Tian, they were naturally afraid. All of them avoided Lin Tian as if he was the god of death. Brat Lin, no matter where you go, you really make people afraid. You're like a demon leader, Whooshing Crocodile said. Lin Tian ignored it. His mind was thinking about the blood-soaked figure and the pair of huge eyes as he walked forward. As for the reactions of the cultivators here, he naturally guessed that it was related to the matter of him killing the strongest young experts of the 5 great immortal sects and the great Tao Realm elders of the 5 great immortal sects 2 months ago on the 5 immortal peaks. He did not care about this and continued to walk away with Whooshing Crocodile. When they were far away, the cultivators around the main road finally heaved a sigh of relief. It's really that man. 2 months ago, he destroyed the grand competition of the younger generation of the 5 great immortal sects, including the Coiling Dragon Sacred Sect. He killed the strongest young experts of the 5 great immortal sects and the 5 great Tao Realm elders who went to the grand competition. He's a ferocious man. That's not all. It's said that before that, the Saint Princes of the Dark Heart Sword Sect, Ink Feather Origin Hall, and Blood Rainbow Immortal Sect, which are slightly weaker than the 5 great immortal sects, were also killed by this man. The 9 great Tao Realm elders of these 3 sects joined forces to kill this man, but they were no match for him. In the end, they were all killed. What? There's such a thing? Of course there is. It's true. He looks like a young man in his 20s. How can he be so terrifying? Many cultivators discussed in shock. The 5 great immortal sects have been chasing after him for the past 2 months, especially the Coiling Dragon Sacred Sect. Almost all of the outstanding young disciples of the Coiling Dragon Sacred Sect were killed, and they suffered heavy losses. It's said that an 8th Heavenly Tao Realm expert jumped out, but unfortunately they couldn't find this person. Now that he has appeared, the 5 great immortal sects will probably kill him soon. Someone murmured. Don't forget, there are still the Dark Heart Sword sect and the other 2 sects. The cultivator who mentioned that Lin Tian had killed the holy sons of the Dark Heart Sword sect, the Ink Feather Yuan Hall, and the Blood Rainbow Immortal sect said. These 3 sects have also sent experts to hunt him down, but there has been no result. Now that he has appeared, he will probably kill his way over soon. Hearing this, the crowd of cultivators trembled slightly. Many of them looked in the direction Lin Tian had left, and they couldn't help but feel a chill run down their spines. He was just one person, but he had to face the merciless pursuit of 8 sects at the same time. Just thinking about this made them feel cold all over, as if they had fallen into a bottomless snow abyss. At this time, Lin Tian had already walked far away. Although he could still hear the discussions of these cultivators due to his powerful cultivation, he didn't care, and his pace didn't change. Now, he didn't have a special place to go, so he gradually stopped thinking about the blood-soaked figure and the huge pair of eyes. Instead, he prepared to look at feng shui again and cultivate his state of mind. Because he had just entered the 8th Heavenly Tao Realm, and then entered the 9th Heavenly Tao Realm, his cultivation had improved too quickly. In order to maintain the stability of his Taoist foundation, he had to cultivate his state of mind. Moreover, the cultivation of the state of mind was also very important to a cultivator, sometimes even more important than cultivation. He walked into the distance, walking on the main road, crossing the mountains and forests, looking at the mountains and rivers, looking at the flowers, insects, and birds. Soon, 3 days had passed, and the aura on his body had become much calmer, giving people a very ethereal feeling. On this day, when he walked out of a large mountain and was about to enter an old forest, dozens of powerful waves of divine power suddenly appeared in the distant sky. Dozens of people rushed over. Their bodies were surrounded by waves of Tao law, and they carried bone-piercing killing intent. Kid, the people who are looking for trouble with you are here. Whooshing Crocodile clicked his tongue. Chapter 948. Dozens of figures rushed over from afar. Every single one of them had dense waves of the great Tao intertwined around their bodies. In almost an instant, they had arrived before Lin Tian and surrounded him. Every single one of them had bone-piercing killing intent on their faces. Lin Tian stared coldly at these people. Just from their auras, he could feel that these people belonged to the Coiling Dragon Holy Gate and the other 4 great sections. Move aside, don't block the way. He appeared very calm. He knew why these people were here, but he couldn't care less about them. There were a total of 21 people surrounding him, and each of them was a powerful existence in the Great Tao Realm. Among them, there were 5 people from the Coiling Dragon Holy Gate, 4 from the Myriad Divine Cult, 4 from the Profound Wind Flame Island, 4 from the Green Mark Immortal Pavilion, and 4 from the Hexa Immortal Sect. These people had rushed over to surround Lin Tiantan, and they were already filled with killing intent. When they saw how calm Lin Tiantan was when they charged over, and he even said move aside, don't block the way to them, their killing intent intensified. They clenched their fists, and it was as if they wanted to eat Lin Tiantan alive. Beast! One of the Coiling Dragon Holy Gate's great Tao Realm experts roared. His cultivation was at the 5th Heavenly Tao Realm, and he directly made his move. Like a torrent of destruction, he appeared in front of Lin Tian in the blink of an eye, and a dragon claw made a grab at Lin Tian's head. This kind of speed was shocking, and ordinary people wouldn't be able to react in time. But to Lin Tian, it was nothing. He merely raised his hand and grabbed the person's wrist. The Coiling Dragon Holy Gate's expert was shocked and angered at the same time. Little beast, you, bang! Lin Tian was expressionless as he calmly raised his leg and kicked the person's abdomen, sending him flying more than 100 zhang away. Seeing this scene, the other 20 people's faces turned serious. However, in the next moment, the killing intent on their bodies became even denser. Almost at the same time, the great Tao realm expert from the coiling dragon holy gate who was sent flying burst out with even more shocking divine might, and he rushed back from 100 zhang away. Damn thing! Staring at Lin Tian, the man clenched his fists, his face livid. He was in the fifth heaven of the great Tao, but just now, he had been sent flying by Lin Tian with a single kick. This caused a sliver of humiliation to rise up in his fury, and his gaze became incredibly vicious. Lin Tian tilted his head to look. With a wave of his hand, a beam of golden sword light appeared and sliced through the air. Pooh! The coiling dragon Holy Gate's disciple was pierced through the abdomen, and half of his body exploded into pieces. It was a ghastly sight. Ah! This person let out a great roar and quickly condensed a physical body. He immediately became even more shocked and angry, feeling even more humiliated. Beside him, the others were shocked. Before they had chased after him, they had already known that Lin Tian's battle strength was extremely strong, and he could kill great Tao realm experts. However, seeing the coiling dragon Holy Gate's disciple suffer defeat twice in a row by Lin Tian, they couldn't help but feel shocked. After all, the coiling dragon Holy Gate's disciple was in the fifth heaven of the great Tao realm. He was much stronger than the 5 great Tao realm experts who had gone to the 5 immortal peaks to participate in the youth competition. However, the shock on these people's faces only lasted for an instant. In the next moment, killing intent surged from their bodies once again. Another expert from the coiling dragon Holy Gate walked out. It was an old man in embroidered robes. His face was full of wrinkles, but the blood chi he exuded was terrifying. Bastard, you will die today. This person was in the 6th heaven of the great Tao realm, and his killing intent surged, shaking the void. Moreover, the other people's killing intent was also extremely strong and piercing. More than 10 waves of divine might surged out in an instant, creating violent hurricanes in this area. In the blink of an eye, a large part of the void collapsed. Lin Tian stood in the middle of these 20 people's encirclement. From beginning to end, his expression was calm, and there was no change in his expression. In the next moment, he shifted his gaze slightly, looking towards the southeast. Almost at the same time, more than 10 waves of divine might appeared from the southeast. 12 figures rushed over at high speed, and Tao law fluctuations intertwined around their bodies. When they arrived, they immediately fixed their eyes on Lin Tian. Every one of them was filled with shocking killing intent. The 20 people from the 5 great immortal sects glanced at each other, and their murderous gazes landed on Lin Tian once again. Dark Heart Sword Sect, Ink Feather Origin Hall, Rainbow Blood Immortal Sect. Brat Lin, including the 21 people from the 5 great immortal sects, there are a total of 33 great Tao realm experts coming to kill you. TSK, this lineup is not small. Wishing Crocodile said. Lin Tian appeared very calm. In the face of 33 great Tao realm cultivators, there was still no change in his expression. Looking at these 33 people, he said indifferently, I'll say it one more time. All of you, get out of my way. Don't block my way. His voice was still calm and not loud, but it made the 33 people's expressions turn even colder, and their killing intent soared. Arrogant thief. No need to talk nonsense with him. Just attack and kill him. Kill. Crush him to death. We can't kill him easily. We have to extract his soul and torture him. Dozens of people's expressions were vicious. Boom! In the blink of an eye, dozens of people attacked together, slashing out rays of killing light. It was terrifying, especially the coiling dragon Holy Gate's 5th firmament great Tao realm expert who attacked Lin Tian. The killing light around his body was the most intense. He directly propped up a destructive divine power, pressing down on Lin Tian with the momentum to annihilate all things. Clearly, he wanted to kill Lin Tian as quickly as possible. For a moment, violent auras intertwined, shaking all directions. Crack! 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 Crisp sounds rang out. Faced with the prowess of 33 great Tao realm experts attacking together, the void space here couldn't withstand it and directly collapsed. Cracks extended out in all directions like spiderwebs, and the scene was exceptionally terrifying. Lin Tian was in the middle of it all. Facing such violent killing intent, his expression remained calm, and there was no change in his expression. He didn't say anything. Raising his hand, he casually slashed out a golden sword light. In an instant, along with a series of crackling noises, the 30 or so great Dao cultivators' attacks were all crushed to pieces. How is this possible? Dozens of people's expressions changed. The coiling dragon Holy Gate's fifth firmament great Dao realm expert gritted his teeth and shouted. Everyone, use more strength. He's only one person. He glared at Lin Tian, and his killing intent surged. He propped up an even more powerful divine power, and his gaze was incomparably vicious. No matter how strong he is, it's impossible for him to stop so many of us. His ending can only be clang! A sword chime resounded, and it was extremely ear-piercing. It directly suppressed this person's words. Lin Tian's expression was indifferent. With a wave of his hand, a resplendent sword light slashed out. As if it had transcended space, it arrived in front of the coiling dragon Holy Gate's fifth firmament great Dao realm expert and slashed down. The coiling dragon Holy Gate's fifth firmament great Dao realm expert immediately felt a great threat. His expression changed, and he quickly retreated. However, the golden sword light was too fast. Moreover, it had sealed off the surroundings. There was no way for him to escape. No! Stop! Puff! A mist of blood exploded, and the fifth firmament great Dao realm expert from the coiling dragon Holy Gate was crushed into pieces. Even his soul was destroyed. In an instant, the other 32 people's expressions changed. At this moment, Lin Tian had actually killed one of them so easily in the encirclement of several dozen of them. Such battle prowess made them involuntarily tremble. I'll give you one last chance. Get out of the way and don't block my path. Don't make a move against me, or I won't mind killing all of you. Lin Tian spoke at this time. His face was expressionless. As soon as he finished speaking, he took a step forward, preparing to leave this place and continue cultivating. The 32 great Dao realm experts stared at Lin Tian. There was a trace of fear in their eyes, but the killing intent in their eyes grew stronger. Do you really think you're invincible? An 8th firmament great Dao realm expert from the coiling dragon Holy Gate snorted. He raised a high-grade Dao weapon, and his killing intent was intimidating. Everyone, let's attack together. If we don't kill him today, what will happen to our sex face? He must die. The other 3 great Dao realm experts from the coiling dragon Holy Gate shouted. As soon as they finished speaking, they charged towards Lin Tiansha. The other great Dao realm experts were filled with killing intent. In a split second of hesitation, some of them charged out. Kill! A person from the Saluo divine sect let out a low roar. He raised a high-grade Dao weapon and used it to unleash an extremely violent killing divine ability. Then, the others followed one after another, and each of them displayed powerful secret arts. Boom! In the blink of an eye, dense killing intent enveloped the surroundings, shattering pieces of space. This kind of power was somewhat terrifying, causing the birds and beasts in the nearby mountains and forests to tremble in fear. At the same time, some of the cultivators far away also sensed this fluctuation, and all of them were shocked. This is... Far away, what's happening? It seems like someone is fighting. What powerful fluctuations! There seems to be the aura of great Dao intertwining, and there's more than one. Let's go and take a look. Let's go! Soon, some people rushed towards Lin Tian's location. Not long after, some cultivators rushed to Lin Tian's location. When they saw the scene of dozens of great Dao realm experts from the 8 great sects surrounding Lin Tian, they were shocked. It's that person! 2 months ago, the person who killed the strongest experts of the younger generation from the 5 great sections. The people around him, these people, they seem to be... They are the experts from the Coiling Dragon Holy Gate, Azura Divine Cult, Green Mark Immortal Pavilion, Enigmatic Wind Flame Island, and Jiao Immortal Sect. Also, Ink Feather Origin Hall, Blood Blast Immortal Sect, and Dark Heart Sword Sect, There are also experts here. This? More than 30 people, all of them are in the Great Tao realm. The cultivators who rushed to the scene were shocked. Boom! Divine arts surged in front of them, an endless killing intent filled the air. More than 30 Great Tao realm experts attacked together, and the power was extremely terrifying. Pieces of the void collapsed, and pieces of the ground were shattered. Lin Tian was in the middle of it all, and he appeared very calm. With just a casual step, those dense killing intent couldn't get close to him. Azure Great Plate! Coiling Dragon Ultimate Kill! Immortal Slaying Divine Tower! Chapter 949. The three cultivators of the sixth firmament of the Great Path all charged towards Lin Tian and unleashed their strongest divine techniques and precepts of the Great Path. Their might was truly astonishing. In the blink of an eye, they interweaved into a destructive sea of divine light that enveloped all directions. Crack! 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 Immediately, the void collapsed. The terrifying power made the crowd of cultivators who had just rushed over from afar palpitate. Lin Tian stood in the middle of this destructive divine light, but there was no change in his emotions. His face was expressionless. I've given you chances time and time again. Unfortunately, you insist on courting death. His voice was indifferent. As soon as he finished speaking, his right hand shook. Golden divine light spread out and shattered the destructive divine light in front of him. Then, he attacked again. With a wave of his hand, 3 towering sword lights pierced through the air with the power to slay immortals. They mercilessly fell on the 3 people who had rushed towards him. Instantly, the 3 Great Tao cultivators' expressions changed. At the same time, they felt the threat of death. Their backs instantly turned cold, and they quickly retreated. However, the 3 towering sword lights that Lin Tian slashed out were too fast. In the blink of an eye, they fell on the 3 people. Puff! 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 The 3 mists of blood directly exploded. These 3 people were unable to block or evade. They were instantly pulverized by the 3 streaks of sword light. Even their spirits cracked and shattered in the air. They were completely annihilated. Those were 3/6 heavens of the Great Tao cultivators. They were actually killed in an instant. How is this possible? Not far away, the crowd of cultivators was aghast. The 3/6 heavens of the Great Tao cultivators were all killed in an instant. The rest of the people from the Coiling Dragon Holy Gate and the other forces who had chased here were also shocked. Once again, they were shocked by Lin Tian's tyrannical combat strength. With a raise of his hand, he shattered the divine arts and laws of the 3/6 heavens of the Great Tao cultivators. Then, he easily buried all 3 of them. This kind of combat strength shocked everyone. Even the 8th heavens of the Great Tao cultivator from the Coiling Dragon Holy Gate was no exception. For a moment, these people only felt a chill run down their spines. The dense killing lights that were attacking Lin Tian couldn't help but stagnate. Clang! An ear-piercing sword whistle resounded in all directions. At that moment, Lin Tian took the initiative to move. Streaks of golden sword light appeared around his body. Every one of them was intertwined with a terrifying power. It was as if they could cut down the stars in the universe. Since you want to die so much, I'll fulfill your wishes. There was no expression on his face. With a thought, a large amount of sword light spread out in all directions with him as the center. So. The sword light that he slashed out cut through the space at an extremely fast speed. In the blink of an eye, it enveloped the remaining dozens of people. For a moment, the sharp sword intent was vast and mighty, causing these people from the 8 major forces to be shocked. Everyone roared and supported their powerful divine abilities and secret techniques to protect themselves. At the same time, they used various footwork to quickly dodge these sword lights. However, the towering sword light that Lin Tian slashed out with the 9 heavens of the Great Tao was not something that ordinary divine abilities and secret techniques could block. How could it be so easy to dodge? In just the blink of an eye, The divine abilities and secret techniques that the group of people supported were all crushed. Most of them were sent flying. Among them, 8 people even exploded on the spot, their bodies and souls shattering together. Such a scene could be said to be somewhat terrifying. It caused all the spectators in the distance to tremble and tremble. This is just a casual slash of sword light, but it actually destroyed everyone's divine abilities and secret techniques. With just one strike, he killed another 8 great Tao cultivators. Everyone was shocked. Someone stared at Lin Tian. His eyes couldn't help but twitch violently. Even his lips were trembling. With a trembling voice, he said, Just how terrifying is he? He looks like a young man in his 20s. He doesn't look like some old antique. How can he have such battle prowess? At this time, looking at Lin Tian, all the cultivators present were stunned. Many of them felt their hearts turn cold, and they couldn't help but tremble violently. The survivors from the Coiling Dragon Holy Gate and the other forces were shocked and furious. In just an instant, all 8 of them had lost the great Tao realm expert. *MN Beast. *MN it. *MN it. *MN it. Combine our strength, don't split up. Combine our strength and kill him. We must kill him. If we don't kill him, where will our sex face go? Everyone roared. Kill! The 8th heavens of the great Tao realm expert from the Coiling Dragon Holy Gate charged at the forefront. Kill! 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 Originally, there were 33 people chasing after Huang Xiaolong. However, in just a short while, there were only 21 people left. Their respective forces had suffered great losses, and these 21 people were incomparably furious. At this time, these 20-plus people roared in unison. Divine abilities, secret arts, and grand Taoists pressed down on Lin Tian as if they didn't care about the cost. The killing intent was terrifying. With a crack, the void shattered, and the ground sank by 3 feet. Cracks spread rapidly in all directions. Lin Tian's expression was indifferent. He raised his right hand slightly and pressed down gently. Chi! A crisp sound rang out as all the divine abilities, secret arts, and great Tao laws that were pressing down on him were all shattered. In an instant, everyone's expression changed again. How is this possible? Dozens of experts were shocked. They had activated their divine abilities and grand Taoists, and the combined power could easily kill an 8th heavens of the great Tao realm expert. However, in front of Lin Tian, they were so weak. Lin Tian's expression was indifferent. His raised right hand trembled, and a large expanse of golden light appeared, turning into rays of sword light that swept out in all directions. In an instant, 3 of the remaining 21 experts suffered. They were directly crushed by the sword light. Their physical bodies and spiritual souls dissipated together, completely vanishing. I gave you a chance to live, but you refused it and insisted on stepping on the road to death. Then, don't blame me for being ruthless. His voice was indifferent. Golden light intertwined beside him. He just stood quietly in place, sweeping his gaze over the last 18 people from the 8 major forces. At this time, the 18 people who survived were all experts. The lowest cultivation was at the peak of the 5th heavens of the great Tao realm. Their combined power was very strong, but he didn't take them seriously at all. It should be known that he was now at the 9th heavens of the great Tao realm. His life origin, grand Taoists, and spiritual soul had all been enhanced by leaps and bounds. Even if a cultivator at the early stage of Wuzhen came, he could kill him effortlessly. These people were really weak in his eyes. Clang! The sound of swords clanged. Beside him, rays of golden sword aura appeared, and each sword was intertwined with unparalleled killing power. Little brother! Little brother! Suddenly, an urgent and aged voice rang out. An old man staggered out from the crowd. His cultivation wasn't bad, and he quickly ran toward Lin Tian. Lin Tian tilted his head to look. He was slightly moved, and the golden light around him slowly disappeared. It's you! He looked at the old man who ran over and was slightly surprised. He remembered that this old man was an old servant of the Yi family. When he sent Yi Tong back, he saw this old man once. The other party seemed to be surnamed Hu. At that time, he heard Yi Tong call this old man Uncle Hu. On the side, the wishing crocodile also looked at this old servant surnamed Hu with a strange expression. He didn't understand why the other party ran here. Old servant Hu ran over from afar. His face was much older than 2 months ago. In the blink of an eye, he rushed in front of Lin Tian and tightly grabbed Lin Tian's sleeve, like a drowning person grabbing onto a life-saving straw. "Little brother, I finally found you. I couldn't find anyone to help me. I beg you, quickly go and save the young master. Save the young master." Lin Tian knew that the young master, that old servant who was talking about, was Yi Tong. His face suddenly changed. "What happened to Yi Tong?" he asked. The wishing crocodile also couldn't help but ask. What happened to that little brat? Old servant who grabbed Lin Tian's sleeve, his old body couldn't help but tremble. 2 months ago, not long after you sent the young master back, Lord Yi Qing and Lord Qin Lin were suddenly killed outside. After that, in the Yi family, the young master. Old servant who trembled even more, and tears flowed down his face. The young master's eyes were dug out by someone. Now, almost, Lin Tiandao's body shook, and so did the wishing crocodiles. At the same time, their faces changed greatly. "What did you say?" the wishing crocodile shouted. Lin Tian grabbed old servant Hu's collar. At this time, he didn't have the time to think about how disrespectful his action was to the old servant. Only coldness filled his face. "Tell me clearly, what happened?" He had just accepted the number 1 disciple, who possessed the sun god's divine eye. Now his eyes were dug out. Good chance. Suddenly, a loud shout rang out. The coiling dragon Holy Gate's 8th heavenly layer Grand Tao realm experts rushed out. "Kill!" the others roared. At this time, they noticed that Lin Tian was completely distracted. Together, they brought out their strongest battle strength. For a moment, the 18 immortal divine abilities and the Grand Tao laws truly fused together, transforming into a destructive torrent that pressed down. It caused the large space to collapse from a great distance, causing the cultivators in the distance to tremble and be greatly shocked. Some of the weaker cultivators were even affected by this violent divine might, and were directly blasted more than 1,000 feet away. Die. Being distracted in battle can take your life at any time. Little bastard, let's see how arrogant you can be. The 18 people's gazes were vicious. At this time, the 18 of them had completely merged their killing divine arts and Grand Tao laws. The power that erupted was enough to kill a 9th heavenly layer Grand Tao realm expert in an instant. At this moment, they merged together and pushed the unparalleled killing power that came from the fusion towards Lin Tian. Killing light enveloped the space within 100 zhang. Scram! Lin Tian didn't even turn his head. The reincarnation diagram flew out, and like a bolt of lightning, it flew behind him and suppressed everything in an instant. Pooh! 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 Chapter 950. The bloody mist intertwined in the air. Everyone around was stunned and aghast. This 18 great Tao experts were actually defeated in one strike. Everyone stared at Lin Tian. At this moment, they all felt an indescribable fear. Some of them could not help but tremble. Even old servant who was stunned. His expression froze. He never expected Lin Tian to be so terrifying. Only Lin Tian himself had a gloomy expression. He stared at old servant Hu in front of him and said coldly, "Tell me what happened." Hu dug out Yi Tong's eyes. The number 1 disciple he had just accepted not long ago actually had her sun god eyes dug out. One could imagine how angry he was. Old servant Hu came back to his senses. His aged body trembled again. Li Wanfu must be Li Wanfu. Lord Yi Qing and Lord Qin Lin were just killed, and she invited her senior brother. Her senior brother is the leader of a large sect. Previously, he came to the Yi family and... Young master. At this point, old servant who could not continue. His body trembled even more violently. Tears streamed down his face, and the hatred in his eyes became even more intense. Lin Tian had been to the Yi family once. He knew who Li Wanfu was. She was the wife of this generation's head of the Yi family. He had seen her before. Back then, she had even mocked him and wishing crocodile. Now that he heard this person again, his eyes were filled with coldness. It's that ugly woman! Wishing crocodile's eyes were filled with killing intent. Old servant who trembled and grabbed Lin Tian tightly. Hurry up and save young master. Young master can't hold on much longer. Lin Tian's face was gloomy. Golden divine light surged around his body and enveloped old servant who. He instantly disappeared from his spot. Like a golden bolt of lightning, he rushed in the direction of the Yi family and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Such speed shocked all the surrounding cultivators. Everyone could not help but tremble violently. Wishing crocodile's expression was not good either. With a flap of its 5-colored wings, it turned into a 5-colored bolt of lightning and flew away in an instant. In the blink of an eye, only the crowd of spectating cultivators who had rushed over from afar remained. They stared in the direction in which Lin Tian left, then stared in the direction in which Wishing Crocodile flapped its wings and left. One by one they trembled, unable to hold back their shock. That crocodile demon beside him is actually so powerful. That speed, that speed! Some people were horrified. Lin Tian took old servant Hu and left at an extremely fast speed. The scenery on both sides flew backwards rapidly, as if time and space were disturbed. Wishing Crocodile flapped its multicolored wings. It was not slow and steadily followed behind. In the blink of an eye, several hours passed. A huge mansion appeared in front of them. As far as the eye could see, there were many pavilions and large pavilions in the mansion. Extraordinary spiritual energy interweaved within them. The plaque in front of the main entrance was engraved with a large Yi character. At this moment, the main entrance of the Yi family was tightly shut. It was very quiet inside the Yi family. There were more than 10 people guarding the main entrance. Lin Tian appeared outside the Yi family with old servant Hu. His expression was gloomy as he walked directly into the Yi family. Who is it? Stop right there! Outside the main entrance, more than 10 people stepped forward and frowned to stop him. Lin Tian's footsteps did not change. A huge force spread out and sent the 10 people who came forward flying with a bang. Then, the main entrance of the Yi family could not withstand this force and directly collapsed. Even the Yi family mansion on both sides of the main entrance collapsed. For a moment, all the cultivators in the Yi family were shocked. Many people rushed out. What's going on? What happened? Someone shouted. Then, in the next moment, the group of Yi family disciples who rushed out stared ahead and saw Lin Tian. Among them, some of the Yi family disciples saw Lin Tian send Yi Tong back to the clan more than 2 months ago. When they saw him again, they could not help but be stunned. It's him! Some of the Yi family disciples who knew Lin Tian trembled and immediately froze on the spot. At this moment, how could they not know why Lin Tian was here? It was because many people in the Yi family already knew that Yi Tong's eyes had been dug out. Of course, there were also many Yi family disciples who did not know Lin Tian. At this moment, they all rushed forward. However, they soon saw old servant Hu behind Lin Tian and could not help but stop in their tracks. A slightly stronger Yi family disciple stared at old servant Hu and shouted, Hu Luo, why are you with him? What's going on? At this moment, old servant Hu was only worried about Yi Tong. His face was full of anxiety, and he did not have the time to care about these Yi family disciples. He pointed at a loft in the Yi family, and said anxiously to Lin Tian Dao, Young master is in that loft over there. Quick, let's hurry over. Young master's eyes have been dug out. Young master's breathing is getting worse and worse. He's about to die. Lin Tian's face was gloomy. He immediately walked in the direction old servant Hu pointed. Wishing Crocodile followed beside him and flapped its wings to catch up. the Yi family's main entrance had been destroyed. Originally, the disciples of the Yi family had cold expressions on their faces. However, when they heard old servant Hu's words, they could vaguely tell that Lin Tian was related to Yi Tong. They seemed to have come because of Yi Tong's eyes being dug out. Their eyes flickered and they did not do anything else for a while. This was because even though Yi Tong was the young master of the Yi family, she was very polite and respectful to everyone. She was very well liked by the ordinary Yi family disciples. At this time, when they heard about Yi Tong, these ordinary Yi family disciples naturally froze. Lin Tian did not stop them. Under old servant Hu's lead, they quickly arrived in front of one of the Yi family's lofts. They directly opened the door and walked in. Young master, old servant has found your master and is here to save you. You will be fine. Old servant Hu quickly rushed to the side of a jade bed in the loft. His aged body trembled and tears flowed down his face. Master. A weak voice came from the bed. Lin Tianyi strode to the side of the jade bed. He saw little Yi Tong curled up into a ball on the jade bed. Her originally chubby body had lost a lot of weight. At this moment, she was shivering on the bed. Her small face was pale and her eyes were wrapped in a layer of white gauze. He could vaguely see traces of blood. She looked sickly, as if she would die at any moment. Instantly, his powerful Dao body could not help but violently tremble. 2 months ago, the little girl was still mischievous and cute. She was chubby and her big eyes were bright. But now, she was curled up in the corner of the bed miserably. Whooshing Crocodile naturally saw all of this. Its expression immediately became very ugly. Damn it! It could not help but angrily shout. On the jade bed, little Yi Tong heard the familiar voice of Whooshing Crocodile. Her already thin body trembled violently. Uncle Crocodile! Uncle Crocodile! The little girl trembled. Her childish voice was weak. She tried to stand up and called out, Master! The little girl was very cute. She knew how to respect people and was also very smart. When she heard the familiar voice of Whooshing Crocodile, she knew that Whooshing Crocodile was here. She also knew that Lin Tian must be here too. Lin Tian quickly reached out and supported the little girl's trembling body. Strands of golden divine light gushed out and enveloped the little girl. Master is here. When little Yi Tong heard Lin Tian's voice, she trembled even more violently. Her little hand grabbed the air. After a few breaths, she finally grabbed onto Lin Tian's sleeve. She was like a child who had been away from home for a long time and finally saw her only family. Her voice was choked with sobs. Master, father and mother are both gone. The little girl was crying. But because her eyes had been dug out, blood flowed out of her pupils. Instantly, the white gauze wrapped around her eyes was dyed red. I can't see. The little girl's face was pale. She looked pitiful. Her small hand, which had lost a lot of weight, clutched Lin Tian tightly. She could not stop trembling. Lin Tiandao's body trembled slightly. His nose was a little sore. His first disciple, his only disciple, was still healthy 2 months ago. She was shouting that she would go out and find him when her cultivation was strong. But now, she was in such a pitiful state. The golden divine light on his body became even more intense. He directly activated the nirvana of the sun to nourish the little girl's body. Don't be afraid. Master is here. He activated the nirvana of the sun and used the light of this divine technique to envelop the little girl. He tried his best to comfort the little girl with a gentle voice. Master will take back what belongs to you in one piece. Beside him, old servant Hu clenched his hands and said hatefully, After Lord Yi Qing and Lord Qin Lin were killed, Li Wanfu's senior brother came. Her senior brother is the leader of a large sect. Because little young master accidentally bumped into him, he dug out little young master's eyes. Now one of little young master's divine eyes was connected to Li Wanfu's son, Yi Huaxing. The other eye was brought back to the sect her senior brother was in. Speaking up to hear, old servant Hu trembled. Looking at the incomparably weak little Yi Tong, tears flowed continuously. Little young master, little young master. He was a servant of the Yi family. But normally, little Yi Tong, as the little young master of the Yi family, had a revered status. She was very respectful to him, and called him Uncle Hu. Now, little Yi Tong was treated like this. How could he not hate her? Damn, it can't be wrong. It's definitely that bitch Li Wanfu who planned all of this. The little guy's parents must have also been killed by her outside. She wants to steal the little guy's divine eyes. Wishing Crocodile was furious and full of killing intent. That bitch! Lin Tian's face was gloomy. He used the golden divine light to envelop little Yi Tong and stop the blood from flowing out of her eyes. At the same time, he continuously nourished her body. He picked up the little girl from the bed. You carry her, he said to Wishing Crocodile. Wishing Crocodile once said that carrying people would damage its dignity. Back then, it was not even willing to carry Lin Tian because of the side effects of consuming the forbidden Baodan. But this time, it did not refuse. Its demonic body directly expanded a little. It personally used gentle demonic power to receive little Yi Tong onto its back. Little Yi Tong, hold on tight. As it spoke, it also used its demonic power to stabilize little Yi Tong. Now, since the little guy called it Uncle Crocodile, it naturally had to protect the little guy. Lin Tian looked lovingly at little Yi Tong on Wishing Crocodile's back. Then, he turned around and walked out with a gloomy face. In an instant, a cold killing intent enveloped the entire Yi family. Chapter 951. Lin Tian walked out of the pavilion. His killing intent was shocking. With every step he took, the pavilions of the Yi family would shake violently, and cracks would appear. The disciples of the Yi family were all shocked, and many of them couldn't help but tremble. Lin Tian's face was gloomy. He used his powerful divine sense to scan the area. He already knew where Li Wanfu and her young son Yi Huaxin were, so he didn't need anyone to lead the way. Soon, under the trembling eyes of the disciples of the Yi family, he arrived in front of a large courtyard in the depths of the Yi family. With his powerful divine sense, he found that Li Wanfu and her young son Yi Huaxin were in this courtyard. Who are you? In front of the courtyard, dozens of outstanding disciples of the Yi family were seriously guarding. Every one of them had powerful cultivation. When they saw someone coming, they immediately stepped forward. Their expressions were cold, and the long spears in their hands flickered with cold light. Lin Tian didn't say a word, and his footsteps didn't stop at all. A powerful force surged forward like a hurricane. Bang! 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 The dozens of disciples of the Yi family who were guarding outside the courtyard all vomited blood and were sent flying. They all screamed and couldn't get up for a long time. Lin Tian stepped forward. The main entrance of the courtyard was immediately shattered by the majestic aura around his body. The walls on both sides also collapsed, and sand and dust filled the air. He stepped into the courtyard and immediately saw a beautiful middle-aged woman and a 12-year-old boy. It was Li Wanfu and her young son Yi Huaxin. He had seen them before. At the same time, there was a middle-aged man with extraordinary cultivation and vitality. It was obvious that he was Li Wanfu's husband, the current head of the Yi family. It's you? Li Wanfu saw Lin Tian, and then quickly saw the Wishing Crocodile carrying little Yi Tong behind Lin Tian. She was slightly moved. Beside her, the 12-year-old Yi Huaxin wore a purple robe. His expression was cold as he looked at little Yi Tong on the Wishing Crocodile's back. The corners of his mouth curled up in a sneer and ridicule. His right eye was crystal clear, clearly different from his left eye. Vicious woman! Behind Lin Tian, when old servant who saw Li Wanfu, a look of hatred appeared on his face as he clenched his fists tightly. Li Wanfu's face immediately turned cold. She stared at old Hu and said, "Dog slave, how dare you? How dare you call me that?" At the same time, the head of the Yi family stepped forward with a cold expression. He stared at old servant Hu and said, "Hulu, you are too presumptuous. Who do you think you are? How dare you call Wanfu that?" As he spoke, he shifted his gaze and saw Yi Tong on the back of the Wishing Crocodile. Then, his gaze landed on Lin Tian, who was at the front of the group. "Also, who are these two people?" Did you bring them into the Yi family? Why did you bring Yi Tong out of the attic? What do you want to do? Bang! Lin Tian's face was gloomy. A violent force radiated from his body and landed on the patriarch of the Yi clan, directly interrupting what he was about to say. With a bang, the patriarch of the Yi clan was knocked dozens of meters away, leaving behind a trail of blood and a miserable cry. 12-year-old Yi Huaxing was shocked. Father! Li Wanfu's expression changed when she saw her husband being sent flying by Lin Tian. As the head of the Yi family, her husband's cultivation was at the half-step Great Dao realm. But now, he was sent flying by Lin Tian so easily. This shocked her. However, in the next moment, her expression turned cold again. Although Lin Tian was powerful, this was the Yi family. In the Yi family, she had no reason to fear Lin Tian. She stared at Lin Tian and said coldly, "You are so big, slap." A loud slap sounded. Lin Tian made his move and sent Li Wanfu flying through the air. Her teeth mixed with blood fell out. "Mother!" Yi Huaxing shouted again. Lin Tian's face darkened as he stared at Yi Tong's right eye. That eye clearly belonged to Yi Tong's son eye. It was Yi Tong's god's eye, his disciple's eye. But now, it had been dug out and attached to someone else's body. He stared at Yi Tong and stepped forward to take back the god's eye that belonged to Yi Tong. Whoosh! 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 Suddenly, there was the sound of something breaking through the air. 9 slightly old figures appeared in the courtyard and blocked Lin Tian's path. Shockingly, these 9 people were the supreme elders of the Yi clan of this generation. All of their cultivations were at the Grand Dao realm, and they obviously resided at the side of this courtyard. At this moment, these 9 people blocked Lin Tian's path. When they saw the wishing crocodile carrying the blind little Yi Tong behind Lin Tian, an old servant Hu, they couldn't help but frown. One of them looked at old servant Hu, frowned, and asked in a deep voice, "Huluo, you brought them here? What's going on?" Old servant Hu clasped his hands. "This is little young master's master." As he spoke, old servant Hu looked at Li Wanfu, who was sent flying by Lin Tian, with a face full of hatred. "Little young master's god's eye has been taken away. We can't just let it go. Although it was her senior brother who did it, it must have something to do with her. It must be her fault. We must seek justice for little young master." The 9 grand supreme elders of the Yi family were all moved. They all looked at Lin Tian. Previously, they had heard that Yi Tong had a master, but they had never seen him with their own eyes. Now that they saw him, they were slightly shocked. They all knew why Lin Tian was here. For a moment, the 9 people frowned even more, but then they all shook their heads and sighed. Little Tong offended the True Moon Celestial Sect's headmaster and caused his eyes to be gouged out. "We're all so heartbroken, but there's nothing we can do. The True Moon Celestial Sect is too powerful. It's not something our Yi family can afford to offend. Little Tong is too careless." One of them spoke. He looked at Li Wanfu and Yi Huaxing and said, "This has nothing to do with Wanfu. Moreover, it was thanks to Wanfu that the True Moon Celestial Sect's headmaster left a god's eye to our Yi family. This was all because of his junior sister Wanfu. Otherwise, our Yi family wouldn't even be able to keep a single god's eye. We might even be in trouble." Wishing Crocodile heard this and immediately laughed angrily. He coldly said, "His True Moon Celestial Sect's headmaster's junior sister is married to your Yi family. It can be considered a bit close to your Yi family. Why would he gouge out little Tot's eyes just because he accidentally bumped into him? You old bastards, have you lived for so many years in vain? Can't you figure out such a suspicious thing?" The 9 people of the Yi family heard Wishing Crocodile call them old things. Their faces sank, but then they sighed again. "You don't know this, but the True Moon Celestial Sect's headmaster is very powerful. He's not any weaker than the masters of the top forces in this heaven domain. However, his personality is very strange and he doesn't care about reason. He only cares about his junior sister. Although his junior sister is married to our Yi family isn't worthy of his attention at all." One of the 9 people shook his head helplessly. The others couldn't help but clench their fists. Clearly, They were very dissatisfied with the True Moon Celestial Sect's headmaster, and even hated him. Even so, they couldn't do anything because the True Moon Celestial Sect was too powerful. The Yi family couldn't afford to offend them. After this person finished speaking, the 9 great elders of the Yi family no longer cared about wishing crocodile. The leading great elder looked at Lin Tian now and said, "Since you came for Little Tong, then we won't pursue the matter of hurting our Yi family's disciples and destroying our Yi family's pavilion. Put Little Tong down and go back to where you came from." "No!" a sharp voice sounded. In the distance, Li Wanfu, who was slapped away by Lin Tiandao, stood up. There was a clear handprint on her face. She stared viciously at Lin Tiandao and said, "He dared to slap me. We can't let him go. Kill him. And that crocodile demon and Huluo's dog slave. Kill them all. Don't leave anyone alive." The 9 members of the Yi clan looked troubled. Among them, the Taishang elder looked at Li Wanfu and said, "Wanfu, let's forget about this. After all, he's Little Tong's teacher. He came for Little Tong. Now, our Yi clan hasn't suffered any major losses, and you aren't injured either. Let him go. As for Huluo, I'll expel him from the Yi clan." "Impossible!" Li Wanfu stared viciously at Lin Tian now and the others and said in a sharp voice, "We must kill them. 9 great elders, he broke into our Yi family, destroyed our Yi family's pavilion, injured our disciples, injured my father, and even injured my mother. If we let him go like this, what will happen to our Yi family's reputation?" Yi Huaxing spoke at this time. He was only 12 years old, but he had a precocious aura. He stared coldly at Lin Tiandao. His right eye flashed with divine light. The 9 grand elders of the Yi clan furrowed their brows even more deeply, and the difficult expression on their faces became even more intense. "Why aren't you attacking?" Seeing that the 9 great elders of the Yi family didn't attack Lin Tiandao directly, Li Wanfu screamed even louder. "Don't forget that Yi Tong offended my senior brother. If I wasn't in the Yi family, your Yi family would have been in trouble. There wouldn't be a single divine eye left in the family. Everyone would have been taken away. This is all because of me. Right now, I'm being bullied in the Yi family. If you let the culprit go, I'll immediately take Huaxing back to the True Moon Immortal Sect. If I don't return to the Yi family, your Yi family won't even be able to keep a single divine eye." The 9 great elders of the Yi family were all shocked. Yi Tong's divine eye had been dug out. The Yi family had already suffered a great loss. If Li Wanfu really took Yi Huaxing away, then the Yi family would really lose a single divine eye. This loss was too great. It was the same as cutting off the hope of the Yi family in the future. They couldn't bear this loss. Moreover, if Li Wanfu really took Yi Huaxing back to the True Moon Immortal Sect, with her senior brother's strange personality, the Yi family might suffer because of this. In an instant, the 9 great elders of the Yi family's expressions all became ugly. They couldn't help but clench their fists. Li Wanfu stared at the 9 and screamed, "Why aren't you, slap?" A loud slap sounded. Lin Tian made his move and slapped Li Wanfu away again. She rolled a few feet away and crashed into a stone pillar. She let out a shrill cry. Then, he made his move again. He pulled Li Wanfu in front of him and grabbed her by the neck. His expression was gloomy, and his eyes were as cold as swords. "Wanfu! Mother!" The head of the Yi family and Yi Huaxing couldn't help but scream. At the same time, the 9 great elders of the Yi family also hurriedly said, "Little brother, please have mercy. Let her go. Let go of your mother." Wishing Crocodile said coldly. Lin Tian grabbed Li Wanfu's neck. His tyrannical divine sense surged and the yin-yang lotus sea appeared. It directly entered Li Wanfu's sea of consciousness. As she screamed, he forcefully pulled out the divine sense engravings. Instantly, the divine sense engravings appeared in the void and revealed a secret room. Li Wanfu and her son, Yi Huaxing, were in the room. Voices came from the divine sense engravings. "Mother, Yi Tong really has the sun eye. Our ancestors' judgment was correct? It is true. I didn't expect that little bastard to have such a pair of divine eyes. Sun eye." In the divine sense engravings, the 12-year-old Yi Huashan clasped his hands together with an envious and jealous expression. His eyes were filled with longing. If only I had the Sun Eye too! With my powerful talent and the Sun Eye, I will definitely be able to stand at the top of the heaven region and become an emperor. Billions of creatures will have to kneel before me. Chapter 952. Images appeared one after another, and voices could be heard from the images. Suddenly, the expressions of the 9 elders of the Yi family changed. The head of the Yi family also trembled, and his expression changed drastically. Clearly, he was unaware of this matter. Wanfu, you! So it was you, you B***tch! The wishing crocodile was furious. Vicious woman! Old servant whose face was full of hatred, and his eyes were red. Li Wanfu's face turned pale. On the other side, the 12-year-old Li Huaxing also trembled. It's not like that. This is fake. It's fake. He's wrongly accusing me. Ah! Li Wanfu screamed, but in the next moment she screamed again. Lin Tian's expression was gloomy, and he acted again. He used the yin-yang lotus sea to pull out more divine sense imprints from Li Wanfu's sea of consciousness, and displayed them in the void. This time, the image showed a mountain, and Li Wanfu was standing with a middle-aged man. The middle-aged man was wearing a golden robe and a purple crown. His gaze was somewhat sinister, and a voice could be heard from the image. Junior sister, are you sure it's really the divine Sun Eye? Of course I'm sure. The ancestors of the Yi family used a special secret technique to investigate it. It's definitely the legendary divine Sun Eye. Senior brother, this is an immortal opportunity. If we can get the divine Sun Eye, our descendants will have a more glorious future. Divine Sun Eye! Heh, very good. Very good. Senior brother, that little bastard's parents are not weak. If we want to get the divine Sun Eye, we have to make a good plan first. In the divine sense imprint, Li Wanfu's gaze was sinister. Junior sister thinks that we have to get rid of that little bastard's parents first. Of course. Didn't you say that the 2 of them would leave the family to handle some matters? At that time, I'll send them on their way. In the same divine sense imprint, the middle-aged man sneered. After that, you can invite me to the Yi family as a guest. At that time, I'll create a small accident and make that Yan Ai kid offend me. Then, I'll have a reason to take his eyes. With the strength of the True Moon sect and my cultivation, the little Yi family won't dare to say anything. After that, I'll leave a divine Sun Eye to his Yi family and give it to nephew Huaxing. The Yi family will be grateful to you. Senior brother. A sinister voice came out from the divine sense engraving, mixed with a sneer, and intertwined in every corner of the Yi clan courtyard. Suddenly, the air seemed to have frozen. Li Wanfu! The Yi family's grand elder's eyes widened in anger, and his endowed body began to tremble like a mad lion. Elder. Senior brother, bitch! How could the Yi family marry such a sinister woman like you? The Yi family's grand elders were so angry that their eyes turned red. They originally thought that little Yi Tong had accidentally offended the True Moon sect leader and had her divine Sun Eye gouged out. They thought that it was because of Li Wanfu that the Yi family managed to keep the divine Sun Eye. Therefore, they were grateful to Li Wanfu. But they didn't expect that this was all part of Li Wanfu's plan. She killed Yi Tong and Qin Lin, then cruelly took Yi Tong's divine Sun Eye. You! The 9 people stared at Li Wanfu with hatred. The Yi family's master trembled and stared at Li Wanfu. He couldn't say a word at this time. Little Yi Tong was on the back of the wishing crocodile. Her eyes were gouged out, and she couldn't see anything, but she could hear. At this time, her small body also trembled and she sobbed. Auntie! How could you do this? Father and mother respected you so much. Yi Tong also respected you. Why did you kill father and mother? The little girl cried. Her voice was very weak and she was very sad. Fresh blood flowed out of her eyes and dyed the white bandage around her red. You still call her auntie? You bitch! The wishing crocodile was furious. He suppressed his anger and released a gentle demonic power to cover the little girl. He stopped the bleeding and at the same time, treated the little girl's weak body. Sinister woman! You will die a horrible death! You will die a horrible death! Old servant Hu stared at Li Wanfu and his eyes were about to pop out. He was a servant of the Yi family, but Yi Qing and Qin Lin never saw him as a servant. Little Yi Tong was also very respectful to him. Sometimes, he even felt that little Yi Tong was like his grandson. He loved little Yi Tong very much. Now that Li Wanfu plotted to kill Yi Tong and Qin Lin and gouged out Yi Tong's sun god's eye, he wanted to eat Li Wanfu alive. Li Wanfu's face turned pale. The truth had been exposed, and she couldn't help but tremble slightly. However, her expression soon turned ferocious again. She screamed, "Yes, I did it." "So what?" She stared at Yi Tong with a cruel gaze. "Why does this little bastard have the legendary sun eye? Why? He doesn't deserve it. Only my son is worthy of this divine eye." "You!" The 9 elders of the Yi family became even more furious. They were so angry that their bodies started to tremble. Lin Tian's face was gloomy. Choking Li Wanfu's neck, he directly raised his hand and punched her in the stomach. "Pooh! Ah!" Li Wanfu let out a shrill scream. Her stomach was directly punched through by Lin Tian's fist. Blood flowed out uncontrollably. At this time, the fierceness on her face disappeared and was replaced by pain and fear. She struggled madly. "Wanfu! Mother!" The Yi family's master and the 12-year-old Li Huaxing both changed their expressions. The Yi family's master staggered forward and looked at Lin Tian with pleading eyes. "Little brother, please be merciful and let Wanfu go this time, please." Bang! Lin Tian released a powerful force from his body and directly sent the Yi family's master flying. Blood splattered all over the sky. He turned his head again and stared at Li Wanfu. The sword in his right hand spat out and mercilessly pierced through her left eye. "Ah! My eye!" Li Wanfu let out a shrill scream and struggled even more violently in Lin Tian's hand. Blood flowed out of her left eye and dyed half of her face red. For a moment, the 9 elders of the Yi family trembled. Lin Tian stared coldly at Li Wanfu. "Gouge out my disciple's eyes. You should also have a taste of losing your eyes." The sword in his right hand was still spitting out. He attacked again and mercilessly pierced through Li Wanfu's last eye. "Ah!" Li Wanfu screamed and her voice became even more shrill. "Eyes! My eyes!" Li Wanfu screamed. Her entire face was dyed red with blood. She looked like a malicious spirit. Lin Tian's face was emotionless and even a little cruel. He attacked again and grabbed Li Wanfu's right arm. He twisted it and tore her right hand off. Blood splattered all over the sky. "Ah!" Li Wanfu screamed. Her eyes were pierced through and her neck was grabbed by Lin Tian. She could only kick her legs in pain. "Save me! Save me!" Lin Tian attacked again. The sword in his right hand slashed through and chopped off Li Wanfu's left hand. It was thrown far away. "Ah!" Li Wanfu let out an even more shrill scream. She was covered in blood and looked like a vengeful spirit that had crawled out of hell. Lin Tian's face was cold. He released his grip on Li Wanfu's neck and kicked her dozens of feet away. Li Wanfu rolled far away. She was covered in blood and stained the ground red. Her body twitched slightly. Her blood-stained face was full of fear and despair. "My eyes, my hand." Such a scene was somewhat frightening and cruel. Even the 9 grand elders of the Yi clan, who had lived for many years, revealed fear in their eyes at this moment. Their bodies could not help but tremble. "Wanfu!" The head of the Yi family struggled to stand up and ran towards Li Wanfu. Clang! 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 It was also at this moment that the ear-piercing sound of a sword rang out. In the sky, the dense golden sword slashed down like rain and drowned Li Wanfu. Blood and dust splattered all over the sky. When the dust settled, there was a large crater. Li Wanfu had completely disappeared, leaving behind only some flesh and blood in the crater. Lin Tian's golden sword rain had cut her into pieces. Immediately, the head of the Yi family's face changed. The 12-year-old Yi Huaxing trembled violently. The 9 elders of the Yi family also changed their expressions. Li Wanfu was dead. Dead? She's finally dead. This vicious woman is finally dead. She deserved to die. She deserved to die. Old servant who clenched his fists. Wishing Crocodile's eyes were cold. That F*King B*TCH. We let her off too easily. We should let her live a life worse than death. Lin Tian's face was cold. At this moment, he stared at Li Huaxing and stepped forward. Yi Tong's sun eye had been attached to Li Huaxing's body. He wanted to take it back. When the 9 grand elders of the Yi family saw Lin Tian walking towards Li Huaxing at this moment, they were all shocked. In an instant, all of them moved and blocked in front of Yi Huaxing. "Little brother, what are you doing?" the leader of the elders said. "I'm taking back what belongs to Yi Tong." Lin Tian's voice was cold. Hearing this, the expressions of the 9 supreme elders of the Yi clan changed a little. "Little brother, you mustn't. This sun eye has already fused with Huaxing's body. If you take it out now, it will greatly damage the divine eye. With Little Tong's current condition, he can no longer nourish the divine eye. Even if you take it back, it will be useless. It will be destroyed for no reason. Although this is very unfair to Little Tong, the Yi family only has one divine eye left. We can't let it be damaged. Little brother, please be magnanimous and let Huaxing go. Let this divine eye remain in Huaxing's body. As for Little Tong, we will do our best to compensate him. Don't worry." The 9 elders of the Yi family were very anxious. Lin Tian's face was cold. He only said one word. "Scram!" With a boom, a majestic force rippled out from his body. It was like a raging wave that swept across all directions. Bang! 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 The 9 elders of the Yi family were sent flying, each of them coughing up large mouthfuls of blood. "Even if something that belongs to my disciple is destroyed, it still belongs to my disciple. No one else has the right to possess it." His voice was bone-chilling. However, although he said that, he was absolutely confident that he could return Yi Tong's sun eye intact. This was because he had the medicine encyclopedia of the Master Apothecary, one of the 9 heavenly sovereigns. With this flawless alchemy encyclopedia and his current cultivation level, he could guarantee that the sun eye would not be damaged at all. Chapter 953. Lin Tian's aura was very cold and somewhat oppressive. He walked towards Li Huaxing, causing Li Huaxing to involuntarily tremble. "This damn brat is also not a good person. He even participated in this. Once we retrieve the divine eye, kill him," Wishing Crocodile said coldly. Lin Tian's eyes were cold as ice. He stepped forward step by step. Light intertwined in his right hand as he activated a divine technique from the medicine cannon. At the same time, dragon patterns appeared. "Young man, stop!" Suddenly, an aged voice rang out. An old man in a black robe appeared in the courtyard. His blood energy was shockingly dense. "Old ancestor!" The 9 grand elders of the Yi family were shocked by Lin Tian's strength. Just his aura alone was enough to repel the 9 of them. At this time, when they saw the old ancestor of their bloodline appear, they couldn't help but cry out in unison. At the same time, they also let out a sigh of relief. "Old ancestor!" The patriarch of the Yi family also called out. The Yi family's old ancestor was dressed in a black robe. He swept his gaze over the courtyard. He glanced at Li Huaxing, then looked at little Yi Tong on Wishing Crocodile's back. Finally, his gaze fell on Lin Tian again. He sighed. "This old man already knows what happened here. The main culprit is Li Wanfu. Since you've already killed her, then you should stop. If you take the divine eye from Huaxing's body again, it will really cause the divine eye to be damaged or even destroyed. My Yi family can't bear this." Lin Tian stared at the Yi family's old ancestor. "Your Yi family can't bear this?" His gaze was cold, and his words were icy. "Your Yi family can't bear this, but my disciple should bear this kind of pain? You deserve to have your eyes dug out and live in darkness?" The ancestor of the Yi family sighed and took a deep breath. He looked at Yi Tong on the back of the wishing crocodile and said, I know that this is very cruel and unfair to little Tong, but in order to protect the divine eye and for the future prosperity of the Yi family, I can only let little Tong down. He looked at Lin Tian and said, Young man, please stop. In the end, this is a matter of the Yi family. Lin Tian's face turned even colder, and a violent aura suddenly burst out of his body. Boom! Golden divine light surged around his body. For a moment, a gale swept through, causing the entire Yi family to shake. At the same time, with him as the epicenter, the surface of the Yi family continued to crumble. Cracks spread out like a spiderweb. In an instant, everyone's countenance changed. The 9 great Tao Realm Grand Elders from the Yi family felt a chill run down their spines. Even someone as powerful as the Yi family's old ancestor, who was half a step into the Enlightenment realm, had a drastic change in expression at this moment. You! At this moment, the pressure that Lin Tian emitted was too terrifying. It was as if a primordial ferocious beast had awoken from its slumber. That kind of peerless pressure made everyone's hearts palpitate. It was as if the Grim Reaper from hell had grabbed their necks. Ka! 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 The terrifying divine might was vast and mighty. Golden divine light trembled, and the ancient buildings near the Yi family continuously cracked open. You have something to do with the Yi family? Lin Tian's voice was bone-chilling. The divine eye that belonged to Yi Tong was dug out and connected to someone else. You people surrounded and protected the person who received the divine eye of Yi Tong and gave her an independent courtyard. Dozens of outstanding disciples of the Yi family stood guard outside the courtyard, and the 9 grand elders personally stayed near the courtyard to guard it. Meanwhile, little Yi Tong, who had her divine eye dug out, was placed in an ice-cold loft by you people. Other than a loyal servant, no one else cared about her. This is what your Yi family has done. He stared at the old ancestor, his eyes filled with killing intent. Do you believe that I won't directly destroy your Yi family? Boom! Outside his body, the golden divine light surged even more, causing the Yi family to shake even more violently. It was as if the entire place would collapse at any moment. The Yi family's old ancestor's expression changed again. You! At this time, the aura outside Lin Tian's body became even more terrifying. Even the old ancestor, who was half a step away from enlightenment, felt his heart palpitate. The 9 supreme elders of the Yi clan were even more astounded. No matter what, they had never imagined that Yi Tong's master would actually be so terrifying. At this moment, they were on the verge of being unable to stand properly under such imposing aura. Old ancestor! Suddenly, a voice rang out. Behind the Yi family's old ancestor, the 12-year-old Li Huaxing stared at Lin Tian and spoke with a sinister expression. He said coldly, Old ancestor, I saw his cultivation clearly. He's at the 9th heaven of the great Tao. His cultivation isn't as high as yours, but his aura is more powerful. Godly rays intertwined in his right eye, giving off an illusory feeling. My right eye can see through many things. It can help the Grand Ancestor disintegrate his aura and skills, including divine arts and secret arts. Grand Ancestor, let's kill him together. Let's kill him and avenge my mother. The Yi family's old ancestor and the 9 grand elders of the Yi family all looked at Li Huaxing and his right eye. Then, they were all shocked. They could clearly see divine light surging in his right eye. This child has already fused with this divine eye to perfection. He can use this divine eye now? One of the Yi family's grand elders couldn't help but ask. Even the Yi family's old ancestor was shocked. He stared at Yi Huaxing's right eye and felt a shocking divine power converging within it. At this time, he even felt as if he had become transparent under this eye. It was as if everything about him had been seen through. Staring at Yi Huaxing's right eye, he fell into deep thought. Then, he looked at Lin Tian and said, Young man, since things have already come to this, you should stop and leave. This is my Yi family's matter. I don't want to mess things up any further. I won't pursue the matter of you barging into my Yi family. He looked at Yi Tong, who was on Wishing Crocodile's back, and said, As for little Tom, don't worry. I will find another eye for him later. In the future, I won't let him suffer any more grievances. Wishing Crocodile was instantly enraged. His demonic energy surged, and his killing intent was revealed. Find your mother! Do you want to die, old thing? Lin Tian's eyes were cold. At this time, he had become somewhat heartless. He stared coldly at the Yi family's old ancestor. Behind the Yi family's old ancestor, the light in Yi Huaxing's right eye intertwined. Suddenly, he shouted, "Old ancestor, be careful. He's making his move. He's coming straight at you, whoosh!" The sound of something breaking rang out. Lin Tian's figure instantly appeared in front of the Yi family's old ancestor. His eyes were emotionless. The Yi family's old ancestor trembled violently. He was shocked by Lin Tian's speed. He didn't see how Lin Tian moved at all. Even with Yi Huaxing's Eye of the Sun's warning, he still couldn't react in time. His expression changed greatly. "You want to, clang!" The sound of the sword was ear-piercing, shattering the large space. In the blink of an eye, dozens of bloody holes appeared in the Yi family's old ancestor's chest. His internal organs were completely penetrated. Then, with a bang, he was flung several hundred meters away by a powerful force. Dazzling blood splattered all over the sky. Old ancestor! The 9 grand elders of the Yi family were terrified. They were the strongest of their generation in the Yi family. They were at the half-step enlightenment realm. However, at this moment, with Li Huaxing's divine Eye of the Sun's warning, they couldn't even block Lin Tian's attack. In fact, the 9 of them couldn't even see Lin Tian's movements. They didn't even see Lin Tian make a move at all. How is this possible? How can he be so strong when he's at the 9th heaven of the great Tao? It shouldn't be. The 9 of them were terrified. At this moment, Lin Tian's strength made them terrified. It gave birth to a real sense of fear. Lin Tian's eyes were emotionless. Killing intent intertwined around his body as he stepped toward Yi Huaxing. Yi Huaxing trembled. His eyes were also filled with fear. Although he had the divine Eye of the Sun, and could see many things clearly, he could even see Lin Tian's movements. However, his cultivation was too weak. He couldn't do anything when facing Lin Tian. "You, don't come over! Don't come over!" He trembled when he saw Lin Tian walking toward him. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. Before he even got close to Li Huaxing, a strong force swept out and landed heavily on Li Huaxing's body. Suddenly, Li Huaxing was sent flying. He crashed into a stone pillar in the distance with a bang. The clear sound of bones cracking could be heard. Blood kept gushing out of his mouth as he let out an ear-piercing scream. He struggled for a long time but couldn't stand up. Huaxing! The 9 supreme elders of the Yi family changed their expressions. They all rushed out and stood in front of Lin Tian. "Little brother, please stop. If this goes on, our Yi family won't be able to keep a single divine eye. Stop it!" The leader of the supreme elders shouted. "Get lost," Lin Tian said. His voice was emotionless. Golden sword light swept out in all directions. Puff! 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 Blood splattered everywhere. The 9 supreme elders of the Yi family were sent flying hundreds of feet away like the ancestors of the Yi family. They all coughed up large mouthfuls of blood. The auras they exuded had all weakened. His gaze was cold, icy, and cruel. He closed in on Yi Huaxing step by step. With every step, the ground beneath his feet would crumble. The shocking killing intent seemed to want to crush everything. In the blink of an eye, he stepped in front of Yi Huaxing, who had been sent flying by him. Yi Huaxing trembled. He stared at Lin Tian, who had appeared in front of him. Divine light surged in his right eye. He was incomparably terrified. "Little brother, please have mercy on him." At this time, the head of the Yi family staggered over from afar. He stood in front of Yi Huaxing, his body trembling. He looked at Lin Tian with a pleading expression. "I beg you, little brother. You've already killed Wanfu. You've avenged Yi Tong. Just let Huaxing go. He's already had his eyes replaced once. If you take away his sun eye now, he'll only have one eye left." Even if you find another eye, it'll be very difficult to replace it. He's still only a child. If he loses one eye, what will he do in the future? I beg you, just let him go. I beg you. His sun eye? Lin Tian's killing intent surged. This is Yi Tong's divine eye. When did it become Yi Huaxing's sun eye? He stared at the patriarch of the Yi family with a bone-chilling gaze. And you, the husband, is responsible for his wife's misdeeds, and the father's fault for not teaching his son well. Your wife and son colluded to dig out Yi Tong's divine eye, and now, you still dare to stand before me and beg for mercy. His killing intent surged. He raised his right hand and the silver Tao diagram of the 4 divisions appeared. It directly enveloped the head of the Yi family. You're also guilty. His voice was cruel. Chapter 954. Lin Tian was truly furious. It had been a long time since he had been this angry. The first disciple that he had just taken in was still chubby 2 months ago. She picked fruits for him, massaged his legs, and fetched water for him. She was lively and adorable. But now, 2 months later, her divine eye had been taken away. Her chubby body was frail and sickly, and she looked as if she would die at any moment. Meanwhile, the people of the Yi family had placed the little fellow, whose divine eye had been taken away, in an ice-cold loft by herself. They had surrounded and protected the person who had taken the little fellow's divine eye. Now, even though these people knew the truth, they were all trying to stop him from taking back the divine eye that belonged to Yi Tong. Every one of them claimed that it was Yi Huaxing's sun eye. The fury in his chest was like a raging sea. Get out of my way! A powerful force rushed out of his body and pushed the Yi family's patriarch away. Then, he grabbed Yi Huaxing with his left hand. Yi Huaxing trembled. Divine light intertwined in his right eye. His face was full of fear. No, no! Don't take my eye out! Lin Tian's expression was cold. Divine light intertwined in his right hand. The pharmacopoeia's divine art manifested. Dragon patterns also appeared. Little brother, stop! The Yi family's patriarch rushed back from afar. His injured body had already been healed. At the same time, the 9 grand elders of the Yi family had also recovered from their injuries. They all ran back. Little brother, you can't! You'll damage the divine eye. The Yi family only has one sun eye left. Little brother, please be merciful. This will really damage the divine eye. The 9 grand elders of the Yi family cried out. They all ran towards Lin Tian together with the Yi family's patriarch. Boom! Lin Tian grabbed Yi Huaxing with his left hand. The aura around his body became even more violent. A destructive wave spread out. Clang! 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 An ear-piercing sword hum reverberated through the air as thousands of sword gleams shot out from within his body, circling around him like war generals. Every single one of them gave off a shockwave that could annihilate all living things. Every single one of them was so terrifying that it caused the Yi family's ancestor and the 9 grand elders to stop in their tracks as they trembled involuntarily. Don't force me to kill you! His voice was cold. Berserk auras intertwined around his body, creating gusts of hurricanes. At the same time, an extremely cold killing intent also spread out, causing the half-step enlightenment stage Yi family ancestor to tremble violently as fear surfaced in his eyes. Lin Tian's eyes were cold as she stared at Yi Huaxing. The light in her right hand intertwined, and the dragon patterns wrapped around Yi Tong's eye of the sun. Yi Huaxing trembled even more intensely. His 12-year-old face was completely covered with fear. No, don't, pooh! Lin Tian used the divine arts of the medicine canon and the dragon patterns to retrieve Yi Tong's eye of the sun from Yi Huaxing's body. Blood splashed everywhere, and Yi Huaxing screamed miserably. More than half of his face was dyed red. Lin Tian waved his hand and threw Yi Huaxing away. Then, he took out a jade container from the stone ring. The container was filled with a transparent liquid. It was the pool water he obtained from the soul-absorbing pool in the 4th heaven. This pool water contained the fragments of the great Tao. It was a rare treasure that could even heal Tao injuries. At this moment, he wanted to use it to temporarily nourish Yi Tong's Eye of the Sun. This precious immortal liquid was the most suitable for nourishing the Eye of the Sun. At the same time, he also cast more than a dozen divine arts of the medicine canon on the Eye of the Sun, and surrounded it with dragon patterns to ensure that the Eye of the Sun would remain intact. He carefully placed the Eye of the Sun in the immortal liquid, then sealed the mouth of the container with dragon patterns again. Only then did he carefully put it away. For now, he only retrieved one of little Yi Tong's Eyes of the Sun. He can't reconnect it for the time being. He needs to find both Eyes of the Sun and heal little Yi Tong's body to a certain extent. Only then can he use the medicine canon's divine arts and other divine arts to reconnect the Eye of the Sun. Putting away the jade container, he stared at Yi Huaxing again. Kill him! This son of a bitch is also involved in this. He is one of the culprits. Wuxing Crocodile said coldly. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. He raised his right hand, and the sword lights around him roared, all aimed at Yi Huaxing. Yi Huaxing only had one eye left. At this time, he screamed. Seeing Lin Tian staring at him again, he was extremely frightened. Little brother, don't! Don't! The Yi clan's patriarch staggered as he ran over. His entire person seemed to have weakened a lot. He once again blocked in front of Yi Huaxing, and just like before, his face was filled with a pleading expression. Do a good deed, do a good deed. Don't kill him, just let him go. He's really just an ignorant child, I beg you. Lin Tian stared at the head of the Yi family, his eyes full of anger. Ignorant child? Look at the divine sense imprint I pulled out from Li Wanfu's Sea of Consciousness. How is he an ignorant child? It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he was the one who gave Li Wanfu the idea of stealing Yi Tong's Eye of the Sun. Previously, when I brought little Yi Tong to this courtyard, he stared at the blind Yi Tong with a cold and mocking smile. Do you think I didn't see it? He's so dark and vicious, and you're telling me that he's just an ignorant child? His voice was full of anger. Kill him! Wuxing Crocodile spoke again. The originally lively and adorable little Yi Tong's parents were killed, and his divine eye was cruelly taken away. Now, he was sickly and lived in the darkness. Whether it was Lin Tian or little Yi Tong, they were both incomparably furious. Lin Tian stared at Yi Huaxing again. The Ling Tian killing sword around his body hummed loudly, each one terrifying. No! Don't, little brother. Please let Huaxing go. I'm willing to die for him. I beg you. I beg you. The head of the Yi family begged. He knelt in front of Lin Tian and kowtowed repeatedly. Lin Tian's chest was full of anger, and his killing intent was boundless. However, when he saw the head of the Yi family begging, the head of the Yi family kneeling in front of him, and the head of the Yi family willing to give up his life for his son, he was more or less moved. The killing sword by his side vibrated and did not fall. Little brother, you, just let Huaxing live. He's only 12 years old. The patriarch of the Yi family spoke up. The 9 grand elders of the Yi family also spoke up, begging Lin Tian to let Yi Huaxing go. Master, don't kill little brother. Little Yi Tong's weak voice came from behind. The little guy was very sensible and kind. Although he couldn't see, he could hear and catch many things with great difficulty. Wuxing Crocodile was furious. However, at this time, because the little girl had spoken up, it did not say anything. Lin Tian looked at little Yi Tong behind him, then looked at the Yi clan patriarch who was kneeling in front of him and kowtowing incessantly. Flames of fury intertwined in his eyes. After a long while, the killing swords around him finally dispersed one by one. He stared at the head of the Yi family. I've crippled your cultivation. Just take it that you've taken the blame for your son. He raised his head again and looked at Yi Huaxing, who was standing behind the head of the Yi family. I won't kill him. However, I'm going to deprive him of his ability to cultivate. He raised his hand. With a buzz, the silver Dao diagram of the 4 divisions appeared and quickly entered Yi Huaxing's body. Amidst Yi Huaxing's screams, a corner of the seal on his life source was shattered. At the same time, Yi Huaxing's current cultivation base was crippled, so he would never be able to step onto the path of cultivation again. He could only live out the rest of his life as a mortal. The head of the Yi family trembled. Tears fell from his eyes as he kowtowed to Lin Tian. "Thank you, little brother!" "Thank you?" He knew very well that Lin Tian was already doing him a great favor by not killing Yi Huaxing and depriving him of his ability to cultivate. Lin Tian did not say anything else. He turned around and walked over to little Yi Tong, who was being carried by Wishing Crocodile. "Master!" Although little Yi Tong could no longer see, she could sense that Lin Tian was beside her. Her little hand grabbed at the air, and only after a while did she manage to touch Lin Tian's sleeve. Lin Tian gazed at the little fellow tenderly, and gently rubbed her head. "Be good. Once Master retrieves your other divine eye and stabilizes your body, I'll reconnect your divine eye. Then you'll be able to see again." He spoke gently. The little fellow nodded obediently as she sat on Wishing Crocodile's back. Lin Tian rubbed the little fellow's head again, then nodded at Wishing Crocodile and walked out of the Yi family. "Little brother, where are you taking little Tong?" In the courtyard, the Yi family's patriarch couldn't help but ask. Lin Tian stopped in his tracks. His voice was cold. "From now on, he has nothing to do with the Yi family. His name is Yi Tong, and he's just my disciple, Lin Tian." The Yi family's patriarch and the others trembled violently when they heard this. They wanted to say something, but they couldn't find the words. "Let's go," Lin Tian said to Wishing Crocodile. Then they walked out of the Yi family together. Old Servant Who glanced at the Yi family's patriarch and the others. He didn't stay behind. He followed behind Lin Tian and Wishing Crocodile, and walked out as well. Lin Tian and Wishing Crocodile walked through the Yi family. Little Yi Tong sat on Wishing Crocodile's back. Her eyes were covered by a white bandage. The bandage was stained with blood. As they walked out of the Yi family, they passed by many Yi family disciples. When they saw little Yi Tong wrapped in white bandage, many of the Yi family disciples didn't look too happy. "Young master." These ordinary disciples of the Yi family were very fond of little Yi Tong. At this moment, some of them were muttering to themselves. They wanted to go up to her, but in the end they didn't. Their expressions were gloomy as they watched from afar. Lin Tianyi didn't say a word. He walked out of the Yi family with Wishing Crocodile carrying little Yi Tong. They quickly left the Yi family's perimeter. Old Servant Who followed behind them. Not long after, the group reached a fork in the road. There were many plants near the fork, and the air was very fresh. Lin Tian looked at Old Servant Who and said, "Elder, let's part ways for now. Little Yi Tong will follow me from now on. I will take good care of her." Chapter 955. Old Servant Who listened to Lin Tian and nodded. He had seen Lin Tian's power and terror with his own eyes. Even a half-step enlightened Yi family ancestor could not block one move from Lin Tian. Now that little Yi Tong was with Lin Tian, he could rest assured without any worries. He looked at little Yi Tong, then looked at Lin Tian. He paused and asked, "Little young master's other eye?" Lin Tian's power was terrifying, but little Yi Tong's other eye was with the powerful True Moon Immortal sect. Before they parted ways, he really wanted to know if he could get his other eye back. "No one can keep what belongs to my disciple," Lin Tian Andao said. His voice was indifferent, and carried a strong sense of confidence. It was also mixed with a cold, killing intent. Old Servant Who trembled, then nodded heavily. He looked at little Yi Tong and said, "Little young master, I will leave now. In the future your master will take good care of you. No matter where you are, I will always pray for you." Little Yi Tong couldn't see. Her little hand was grasping in the air. Old Servant Who quickly walked over and held little Yi Tong's hand. "Uncle Hu, you have to be well," the little guy said. With Lin Tian and Wishing Crocodile continuously using their divine power and demon power to heal the little guy's body, the little guy's spirit was much better now. He was no longer as weak as before. Old Servant Whose eyes were filled with tears. He nodded and stepped back. He looked at Lin Tian and said, "Little brother, I will leave little young master to you in the future. Lin Tian did not say anything. He nodded silently. Old servant Hu thanked him and stepped back a few feet. He bowed in Lin Tian's direction and looked at little Yi Tong reluctantly. Then he turned and left. He will not return to the Yi family, Wishing Crocodile said. Lin Tian was very clear about this. His cultivation is not weak. He is strong enough to travel the world alone. With that, he rubbed little Yi Tong's head tenderly and said to Wishing Crocodile, Let's go to the True Moon Immortal Sect. The little guy's other eye was taken to the True Moon Immortal Sect. He would not waste any time and wanted to get the divine eye back. Wishing Crocodile nodded. He was very familiar with this heaven domain. He immediately carried little Yi Tong and headed northwest. The True Moon Immortal Sect, Dark Heart Sword Sect, and Mo Yuan Palace are on par with the three sections. They belong to the third level of power in this heaven domain. For generations, there are around 6 Wuxian level cultivators in each generation. The strongest has never exceeded the second sky of Wuxian level. They are at the top of the third level in this heaven domain, it said. Lin Tian nodded and followed Wishing Crocodile. They stepped on the void and headed northwest of this heaven domain. Wishing Crocodile used his beast power to protect little Yi Tong. The man and crocodile were very fast. Soon, they appeared in front of a big mountain. As far as the eye could see, the mountain was extremely tall, and it was surrounded by strands of white mist. There was a crimson rock path that extended all the way to the peak of the mountain. All sorts of immortal plants stood tall and straight on it, and one could faintly see numerous magnificent and tall palaces. The True Moon Immortal Sect is up there, Wishing Crocodile said. Lin Tian's eyes were a bit cold. He let Wishing Crocodile follow behind him and walked straight to the crimson rock path. The path to the top of the True Moon Immortal Sect was not steep, but it was very long. There were more than 10 disciples guarding the path. They were all very energetic. The weakest was at the 9th heavenly layer of the Sea of Consciousness realm. The leader was at the Zephyr realm. Lin Tian walked forward. The True Moon Immortal Sect disciples guarding outside immediately frowned and looked over. Where did you come from? Don't you know this is the True Moon Immortal Sect? How dare you come so close? Do you want to die? The leader said coldly. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. He walked forward step by step. These ordinary disciples of the True Moon Immortal Sect were not in his eyes at all. Still not stopping? Courting death! Take him down! The True Moon Immortal Sect disciples guarding here became serious. They all held their spears and pressed down on Lin Tian. Lin Tian didn't say anything. He didn't even look at these people. The divine might in his body spread out and turned into a ripple. The dozen or so people were sent flying while coughing up blood. None of them could stand up again. He didn't change his pace. He walked up the crimson rock path step by step. With each step, the crimson rock path of the True Moon Immortal Sect would shatter, destroyed by his murderous intent and aura. Who dares to break into the True Moon Immortal Sect? Stop! Along the crimson rock path, there were many powerful disciples of the True Moon Immortal Sect. When they saw Lin Tian and Wishing Crocodile carrying little Yi Tong coming from outside the sect, their eyes turned cold. They immediately attacked and shot out rays of murderous intent. However, these rays were too weak for Lin Tian right now. Lin Tian didn't move at all. These rays of murderous intent crumbled outside of his body, unable to withstand his powerful aura. At the same time, this aura began to spread outwards, turning into an invisible force. It pushed away all the True Moon Immortal Sect disciples along the way. They all coughed up blood and couldn't get up for a long time. In the blink of an eye, he was in front and Wishing Crocodile was behind him. They had truly entered the True Moon Immortal Sect. At this time, inside the True Moon Immortal Sect, there were many tall immortal plants flowing with light. Many tall palaces shone with immortal splendor. An immortal aura intertwined in the air. The spirit energy in the air was very dense. Whoosh! 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 Lin Tian's arrival naturally alarmed some of the true experts of the True Moon Immortal Sect. At this time, more than 10 half-step Dao realm deacons rushed out with powerful immortal weapons in their hands. "How dare you barge into the True Moon Immortal sect like this? Take him down! No need, kill him on the spot!" At this time, many disciples of the True Moon Immortal sect rushed out and surrounded Lin Tian. Their expressions were cold. Someone actually dared to swagger into their sect like this. "Take his head!" a powerful deacon said coldly. Immediately, these deacons attacked mercilessly, all aiming for Lin Tian's vitals. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. "Get out of my way!" Boom! With him as the center, a violent aura surged out, and an invisible force swept out in all directions like raging waves. Bang! 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 The dozens of deacons of the True Moon Immortal sect who were charging at him were all blown away by the force, coughing up blood. For a moment, the other disciples of the True Moon Immortal sect trembled. These deacons are all half-step Dao realm cultivators, but they're defeated with just their aura. How is this possible? The disciples of the True Moon Immortal sect were shocked. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. His powerful spirit sense enveloped the entire True Moon Celestial sect. In the next moment, he looked towards the east of the True Moon Celestial sect and walked down. That's where the hierarch is. He seems to be teaching the young hierarch personally. We can't let this bastard disturb him. Many disciples of the True Moon Immortal sect were shocked and attacked together. Instantly, beams of powerful killing light intertwined. All the disciples of the True Moon Immortal sect attacked together. There were more than 100 powerful techniques, all of which pressed toward Lin Tian, shattering a large area of space. Lin Tian didn't dodge. His eyes were cold. Only the golden light around him surged and spread out with him as the center. Whoosh! 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 The techniques of the True Moon Immortal sect disciples were all crushed. Then, they were all sent flying by the divine light. The sound of bones breaking, blood coughing, and screams resounded throughout the entire True Moon Immortal sect. In fact, this was Lin Tian being merciful. Even though he was filled with killing intent because the True Moon Immortal sect's leader had dug out Yitong's eyes, he would not casually kill an ordinary True Moon Immortal sect's disciple. Otherwise, when he walked up from the foot of the True Moon Immortal sect's mountain, this sect would already be filled with corpses. Not a single person who saw him survived. He stared at the east of the sect with cold eyes. A killing sword rushed out of his body and slashed forward. Clang! For a moment, the piercing sound of the sword resounded. The pavilions in front were all destroyed. A huge sword mark appeared on the ground, and a straight path to the east appeared. Immediately, the surrounding disciples of the True Moon Immortal sect trembled in fear. This. Someone trembled and couldn't say a complete sentence for a long time. He was stunned by Lin Tian's peerless sword. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. He walked 100 meters in one step. Golden sword light surrounded his body. Wherever he went, he killed all the disciples of the True Moon Immortal sect. Soon, he appeared in a pagoda tree forest. There was a young man in a black shirt and a middle-aged man in a golden robe. The young man in the black shirt was about 20 years old. He was full of vitality, and his left eye was crystal clear. The middle-aged man was wearing a purple crown. His eyes were gloomy and majestic. He was teaching the young man in the black shirt how to adapt to his left eye. Damn it, I found it! Whooshing Crocodile stared at the young man in the black shirt, and then at the middle-aged man in the golden robe. His eyes were full of coldness. When he was still in the Yi family, Lin Tian pulled out many spiritual imprints from Li Wanfu's Sea of Consciousness. Among them was the appearance of the True Moon Immortal sect's leader who dug out little Yitong's eyes. It was the middle-aged man in the golden robe in front of him. At this time, the young man in the black shirt next to the middle-aged man was obviously this person's son. His left eye contained divine light, which was obviously different from his right eye. It was little Yitong's other son eye. The True Moon Immortal sect's leader and the young man in the black shirt also noticed that Lin Tian and Wishing Crocodile had entered this place. They both looked over. Then, the True Moon Immortal sect's leader stared at little Yitong on Wishing Crocodile's back. His gloomy eyes showed some surprise. "Ya my brat, it's you? How?" Swoosh! With a cracking sound, Lin Tian's figure flashed, and he instantly appeared in front of the True Moon Immortal Sex Leader. The True Moon Immortal Sex Leader's expression changed. "You!" He was half a step away from the Enlightenment realm, and his cultivation was very strong. However, at this time, he was shocked by Lin Tian's speed. He didn't see how Lin Tian moved at all. Clang! The sound of a sword was ear-piercing. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. He grabbed the right arm of the True Moon Immortal Sex Leader with his left hand. The sword light in his right hand shot out and pierced through the right eye of the True Moon Immortal Sex Leader. Chapter 956. Blood splashed in the air. The True Moon's leader screamed and struggled violently in Lin Tian's hands. However, he couldn't break free no matter how hard he tried. Lin Tian's left hand was stuck in his body like a holy weapon. His struggle was useless. "Father!" The young man in black was shocked and angry. At the same time, the elders of the True Moon Immortal Sect were informed that an enemy had broken in. They all rushed here. There were more than 10 of them, and they were all in the Grand Path realm. They were all shocked when they saw this scene. Their powerful leader, who was half a step into the Enlightenment realm, was suppressed by a young cultivator who had broken into their sect. One of his eyes was pierced through. "Ah!" The True Moon's leader screamed. Blood dyed half of his face red. "Who are you?" he screamed and roared. Half of his blood-stained face was filled with ruthlessness and viciousness. Monstrous divine power erupted from his body. Blood-red light shot up into the sky and turned into a beam of light. He tried to break free from Lin Tian's hands. Lin Tian's left hand grabbed the True Moon's leader's left arm. He pressed down hard, and the sound of bones breaking could be heard. "Gouge out my disciple's eyes. Who do you think I am?" His voice was cold. At the same time, he clenched his right hand into a fist and smashed it into the True Moon's leader's abdomen. The True Moon's leader's body was immediately penetrated. Moreover, a terrifying fist energy turned into a killing light and penetrated his body, bringing out a large amount of blood. The True Moon's leader screamed. The blood-red divine power that emerged from his body was immediately annihilated. He was shocked, angry, and frightened. "You're that little bastard's master!" Clang! The sound of a sword was ear-piercing. The golden sword light in Lin Tian's right hand pierced mercilessly into the last eye of the True Moon's leader. "Ah!" The True Moon's leader screamed. Both of his eyes were destroyed by Lin Tian. Blood dyed his entire face red. Moreover, what made him panic and fear the most was that he was at the half-step enlightenment stage. Even if his body was shattered until only a drop of blood was left, he could still reform it. However, at this time, Lin Tian had destroyed his eyes and he was unable to reform them, completely losing his sight. What did you do?" he said in fear. "Father!" the black-clothed young man shouted. At the same time, the True Moon Immortal Cult's great Tao Realm elders were furious. "How dare you, thief! How dare you!" someone roared. For a time, swoosh 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 sounds kept on ringing out as over 10 great Tao Realm elders moved simultaneously, charging out toward Lin Tian. Now, their sect leader was being held captive by Lin Tian in their own sect. How could they remain indifferent? Lin Tian tilted his head and glanced at the dozen or so people rushing over. His gaze was as cold as a sword. Boom! Outside his body, golden divine light boiled, and a violent aura surged out. Shocking murderous intent intertwined and turned into a shocking hurricane that swept out. It immediately caused the dozen or so great path cultivators who were charging forward to tremble violently. "You!" At this moment, over 10 great Tao Realm experts stopped in their tracks. Their bodies trembled uncontrollably. They were shocked by the violent aura and violent killing intent that Lin Tian emitted. It was as if they were facing an unparalleled killing god. Lin Tian stared at these people with a bone-chilling gaze. "I'll kill whoever comes forward!" "You!" For a time, The dozen or so great Tao realm experts trembled again. When they met Lin Tian's icy gaze, all of them felt as if their hearts were being grabbed by someone and would be crushed at any moment. Some of them even broke out in cold sweat involuntarily. Lin Tian tilted his head, and his gaze landed on True Moon's sect leader again. His gaze was very cruel. In terms of methods, I have plenty of them. I won't let you die so easily. You can slowly experience all the pain in the world. His voice was cold. As soon as he finished speaking, he raised his right hand slightly. Elixir flames intertwined, turning into an ancient seal that fiercely imprinted itself on True Moon's sect leader's chest. Instantly, True Moon's sect leader trembled violently, and he directly let out a heart-wrenching scream. Ah! What did you do to me? Ah! True Moon's sect leader howled miserably, his limbs struggling frantically. Such a scene caused the dozen or so great Tao realm elders in this place to tremble. Their sect leader was at the half-step enlightened realm, yet at this moment, he was actually letting out such a shrill scream. It was as if he was suffering from monarch-level torture. They all wanted to rush forward, but they really didn't dare. This was because the aura that Lin Tian exuded was too frightening. Ah! You did! Stop! Ah! Let go of me! True Moon's sect leader screamed miserably. Lin Tian's gaze was ice-cold. He had planted a forbidden ancient technique from the medicine encyclopedia on True Moon's sect leader. It was called the Heart-Devouring Remnant Seal. It used divine power to form a special elixir flame seal. After it was planted into a living being's body, it could slowly burn the living being's flesh and blood. The process was incredibly painful, as if there were thousands of poisonous insects and ants tearing at the flesh. However, the most frightening thing was that this process was also extremely slow. If it was not disturbed, it would take several years to completely burn a person's flesh and blood. In other words, if the caster of this technique didn't take the initiative to undo this technique, and the person who was planted with this technique didn't have the ability to shatter this technique and didn't commit suicide, then the person who was planted with this technique would have to endure the pain of thousands of poisonous insects and ants tearing at their flesh and blood for several years to come. Only when their flesh and blood were completely burned away would they be truly freed from this pain. It could be said that this technique was extremely cruel. As a result, even though this technique wasn't very powerful, it was still listed as a forbidden ancient technique by the medicine encyclopedia by the Master of Medicine. At this moment, Lin Tian's left hand was suppressing the True Moon's sect leader. He had suppressed the other party's laws of the Great Path so that he couldn't heal his wounds, and his divine power couldn't flow freely either. It was even more impossible for him to commit suicide right before his eyes. He could only passively endure the heart-devouring pain brought about by this ancient technique. Ah! The True Moon sect leader screamed miserably as he struggled madly. Lin Tian's gaze was emotionless. Light flickered between his brows, and the lotus sea in his sea of consciousness swayed. Afterwards, a lotus sword that was an inch long shot out and quickly entered the True Moon sect leader's sea of consciousness. It found the other party's soul in an instant, and directly slashed down with the lotus sword. With a hiss, he used the lotus sword to directly slice apart a portion of the soul. It was roughly 1/10,000th of the soul. Ah! Immediately, the True Moon sect leader screamed even more miserably. This was because the soul was one of the most important existences for cultivators. The pain of having one's soul damaged was unimaginable. Your divine soul can still withstand 9,999 slashes like this. Let's take it slow. Lin Tian's voice was ice-cold. This was the first disciple he had just taken and not too long ago. He was extremely sensible, kind, filial, and obedient. He was occasionally mischievous, but he was also lively and cute. However, this True Moon sect leader killed his parents and cruelly gouged out his divine eyes. Now, there was white gauze wrapped around his eyeless pupils. At the same time, he had to endure the pain of losing his parents and the light. This little fellow was only 5 years old. A child who was only 5 years old actually had to endure this kind of pain. He stared at the True Moon sect leader, his expression extremely cruel. The lotus sword that entered the other party's sea of consciousness hacked down again, cutting apart a small portion of the other party's soul. Ah! The True Moon sect leader screamed even more miserably. Right now, he was enduring the pain of his flesh being burned, while enduring the pain of his soul being slowly hacked apart. His 4 limbs struggled even more intensely, and blood continuously flowed out from his shattered eyes. No, stop! I was wrong! Please let me go! His eyes were shattered, his flesh was burning, and his soul was slowly being hacked apart. He couldn't bear it anymore, and he started to beg for mercy. Not far away, the dozen or so Tao realm elders of the True Moon Immortal sect shuddered violently. The sect leader of this generation of their sect had astonishing talent. His cultivation level was at the half-step enlightenment realm, and he wasn't any weaker than the masters of those top-notch forces. He could be said to be the most powerful sect leader of the True Moon Immortal sect in history. Right now, in their own sect, he was actually begging for mercy from a young cultivator. Let you go! Lin Tian stared at the True Moon sect leader. Sure! He waved his right hand, and a Tao diagram of the 4 symbols that was about an inch in diameter appeared. He directly sent it into the other party's body. In an instant, it arrived near the other party's life essence and directly covered it, forcefully destroying a corner of his life essence. The True Moon sect leader coughed up large mouthfuls of blood. There was even saliva dripping from his mouth. He looked extremely miserable. To a cultivator, life essence and soul were the most important things. Needless to say, the pain of having a corner of one's life essence crushed was naturally unbearable. Even an emperor-level cultivator wouldn't be able to endure it. Sect leader! The dozen or so great Tao realm elders couldn't help but call out. However, none of them dared to step forward. Their sect leader was a half-step enlightenment realm cultivator. At this moment, he was already in such a miserable state in Lin Tian's hands. He didn't have the ability to resist at all. If they rushed forward, what could they do? They would probably be killed in the blink of an eye. What did the sect leader do? This? What kind of person did he offend? Inform the Grand Elders. The Grand Elders and the Grand Elders seem to have entered seclusion a few days ago. If we disturb them now, how can we care about so much now? Hurry! The dozen or so great Tao realm elders were both shocked and terrified. Immediately, someone left. He quickly rushed out of this place and ran into the depths of the True Moon Immortal sect. Clearly, he was going to ask the Grand Elders of this branch to come out of seclusion. Lin Tian saw all of this clearly, but he didn't care at all. He only stared coldly at the True Moon sect leader. He used his left hand to suppress the True Moon sect leader. The sword radiance in his right hand shot out again, directly piercing through the True Moon sect leader's legs, creating dozens of transparent bloody holes. The True Moon sect leader screamed miserably. At this moment, his entire body was drenched in blood. He was so miserable that he didn't even look human anymore. Stop! Let me go! Let me go! Chapter 957. The headmaster of the True Moon Celestial sect screamed and begged for mercy. His voice was shrill, and he looked miserable. The dozen or so cultivators of the great path of the True Moon Celestial sect who had rushed here were all shocked. Their powerful headmaster couldn't even fight back against a young man who had barged into their sect. The headmaster of the True Moon Celestial sect howled. His whole body was drenched in blood. Lin Tian's eyes were cruel. He attacked again. The lotus sword cut off a part of the headmaster's spirit, and the 4 symbols Tao diagram destroyed a part of his life source. The headmaster of the True Moon Celestial sect screamed even more shrilly. At this moment, he looked more like a ghost than a ghost. Yes, that's it. Let this bastard suffer a fate worse than death, Wishing Crocodile said coldly. At this moment, violent footsteps came from outside the Huai tree forest. Many disciples of the True Moon Celestial sect ran over. Then, everyone saw the miserable state of the headmaster of the True Moon Celestial sect. They were all shocked. "This is, headmaster, he was, this." The disciples of the True Moon Celestial sect were all shocked. An outsider had barged into their sect and injured their headmaster in such a miserable state. This was a great shock to their visual nerves. Why didn't the elders do anything? Were they shocked by that person? Someone shuddered. Ah! With a blood-curdling scream, the True Moon's headmaster was covered in blood. At this moment, his soul was being sliced apart inch by Lin Tian's lotus sword. His life essence was being annihilated bit by the Tao diagram of the four symbols. His flesh and blood were burning under the heart-devouring seal, enduring inhuman pain every second. Even though his cultivation was at the half-step enlightenment realm, he couldn't endure it anymore. "Father, father!" The son of the headmaster of the True Moon Celestial sect was anxious, but he didn't dare to step forward at this moment. Lin Tian's aura was too terrifying. His killing intent intertwined. He was like a peerless demon from hell. Lin Tian's eyes were emotionless. He stared at the headmaster of the True Moon Celestial sect. The sword light in his right hand flickered. He attacked again, slashing at the headmaster's arms. Puff! Puff! Blood splattered. The headmaster of the True Moon Celestial sect's arms exploded, and pieces of bones and flesh. The headmaster of the True Moon Celestial sect was. "Continue!" Lin Tian's voice was emotionless. With a single thought, the lotus sword that had entered his opponent's knowledge once again shattered a portion of his opponent's divine soul. At the same time, the Tao diagram of the four symbols instantly crushed a portion of his opponent's life source. Moreover, the heart-devouring seal he had cast on True Moon's body was burning his flesh, blood, and internal organs. True Moon's headmaster screamed in agony. This scene made the disciples of the True Moon Immortal sect tremble in fear. Boom! At this moment, several powerful auras rushed out from the depths of the True Moon Celestial sect. 5 figures stepped out, and each of them had extremely terrifying ripples intertwined around them. They arrived here in the blink of an eye, all of them at the first sky of enlightenment. For a moment, the True Moon Immortal family's dozen great Tao experts, the black-clothed youth, and the group of ordinary disciples all revealed looks of joy. "Grand Supreme Elders!" The black-clothed youth shouted. "Grand Supreme Elders, please, please save my father!" At the same time, the dozen great Tao realm experts and the group of ordinary disciples also spoke, asking the 5 Grand Supreme Elders to save their father. The 5 Grand Supreme Elders of the True Moon Celestial sect were originally in seclusion. When they received the report that an expert had barged into the sect and captured the headmaster, they immediately came out of seclusion and came here. At this moment, they directly saw the headmaster of True Moon in Lin Tian's hands. Their faces turned cold. "Elders, please save me!" True Moon's headmaster spoke. His voice was already hoarse. He's the teacher of that Yanai child from the Yi family. He's here to steal the divine Sun Eye from our sect." The 5 Grand Supreme Elders of the True Moon Celestial sect were all moved. They stared at Lin Tian with a slightly surprised expression. However, their expressions immediately became even colder, and killing intent was revealed. "That Yi family child you mentioned actually has a teacher," one of them said, staring coldly at Lin Tian. "I didn't expect that right after we joined forces to perfectly connect Jiwen's Eye of the Sun and enter seclusion, the other party's teacher would actually come knocking on our door." Clearly, the Jiwen this person was talking about was the young son of the True Moon Celestial sect's headmaster, that black-robed youth. "It's good that he's come. Let's kill him now to prevent any potential uncertainties in the future." Another person spoke. "Save Gio first, then kill him," another person said. The Gio he spoke of was obviously the headmaster of True Moon Celestial sect. As soon as he finished speaking, this person directly made a move. His large hand pressed down, filled with the laws of the great Tao, grabbing toward Lin Tian's head. Boom! This person was one of the Grand Supreme Elders of the True Moon Celestial Sect. His cultivation was at the Wuzhen realm. It was just a casual move, but its might was peerlessly terrifying. The surrounding space was completely sealed in the blink of an eye. Headmaster is fine. He'll be saved soon. At this place, the dozen or so great Tao realm experts and the group of ordinary disciples of this sect all let out a sigh of relief. They were secretly amazed at the might of their own sect's Grand Supreme Elder. A casual move was actually so powerful. Moreover, at the same time, these people also heard many other things from the words of these Grand Supreme Elders and their own sect's headmaster. Lord Headmaster sees that person's disciples' eyes. Madam's yan eye. This is true. Many people stared at Lin Tian, their faces full of astonishment. Lord Headmaster, for our True Moon Celestial Sect, for our young sect master, he retrieved a legendary divine eye of the sun. Some people were shocked. Boom! Divine might surged. At this time, the Grand Supreme Elder of the True Moon Celestial Sect who made a move had already pressed down on Lin Tian's head with his large hand. Lin Tian's left hand was suppressing the headmaster of True Moon Celestial Sect. At this time, he tilted his head and stared at the Grand Supreme Elder of the True Moon Celestial Sect who made a move. At the same time, he also stared at the other 4 Grand Supreme Elders of this sect. His gaze was cold and overflowing with killing intent. You old things know that your own sect's headmaster is doing evil, but instead of stopping and punishing him, you condone it. Now you want to kill me? His voice was bone-chilling. Boom! An even more terrifying aura rushed out of his body. His left hand was suppressing the headmaster of True Moon Celestial Sect, while his right hand directly swung the Primal Chaos Emperor fist. Instantly, a mighty fist that could destroy all things in the world shot out a blinding light beam. With a crack, the space in front of him shattered. The power of the Primal Chaos Emperor fist crushed everything, directly shattering everything. The expression of the Grand Supreme Elder of the True Moon Celestial Sect changed greatly. His large hand was directly annihilated by the power of the Primal Chaos Emperor fist. Moreover, the power of the Primal Chaos Emperor fist did not stop there. It continued to press forward without slowing down, making it impossible for him to dodge. No, this is... Poof! Along with a terrified cry, a mist of blood exploded. The Grand Supreme Elder of the True Moon Celestial Sect was directly crushed by the Primal Chaos Emperor fist's light beam. His divine soul was also shattered by the Primal Chaos Emperor fist's light beam. Immediately, everyone's expression changed. Grand Supreme Elder! How can this be? The disciples of the True Moon Celestial Sect and the dozen or so elders of the Great Tao Realm were all shocked. A Grand Supreme Elder of their sect, who was at the Enlightenment Realm, was actually killed by a single punch. Not only these people, but even the other 4 Grand Supreme Elders were trembling. All of their expressions changed drastically. How can this be? One of them cried out involuntarily. The cold expression that he had when he walked out at the beginning instantly disappeared without a trace. Lin Tian stared at the 4 people and the headmaster of True Moon Celestial Sect in front of him. The aura on his body skyrocketed again, like a raging wave. Today, I want the True Moon Celestial Sect to be erased from this world forever, he said coldly. His left hand was suppressing the headmaster of True Moon Celestial Sect. At this moment, he suddenly exerted force, and a towering sword light instantly erupted from his palm, directly destroying the headmaster of True Moon Celestial Sect. Blood burned a large area of the ground. Father! Chio! Headmaster! In this place, the black-robed young man, the 4 Grand Supreme Elders, the group of ordinary disciples, and the Great Tao Realm cultivators all trembled violently. Then, in the next moment, an ear-piercing sword sound rang out, causing these people to tremble again. Clang! 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 Dense sword light rushed out of Lin Tian's body and enveloped the entire True Moon Celestial Sect in the blink of an eye. A terrifying murderous aura spread out in every corner like a destructive sword rain, as if it could destroy everything at any time. Here, except for the son of the headmaster of True Moon Celestial Sect and those at the Grand Supreme Elder level and above, I'll give you a chance. Voluntarily withdraw from the True Moon Celestial Sect, get out of this place, and never consider yourself a disciple of the True Moon Celestial Sect again. Otherwise, die! His voice was cold, like rolling thunder, and instantly resounded in the sky above the True Moon Celestial Sect. For a moment, all the disciples of the True Moon Celestial Sect trembled. They were shocked by Lin Tian's aura and even more shocked by Lin Tian's words at this moment. You want us to withdraw from the True Moon Celestial Sect, otherwise we will die. Someone trembled. The 4 Grand Supreme Elders of the True Moon Celestial Sect were both shocked and furious. At this time, an old voice came from the depths of the True Moon Celestial Sect. An old man in a gray robe stepped out and walked in the air step by step. How arrogant! You think you can destroy the foundation of the True Moon Celestial Sect? This old man's aura was much stronger than the other Grand Supreme Elders. He was at the 2nd heavenly layer of enlightenment. Ancestor! Immediately many people shouted. The 4 Grand Supreme Elders of the True Moon Celestial Sect were also very respectful towards this person. Even though there was only a small gap between them, the difference in battle power was huge. Moreover, this old man was 2 or 3 generations older than the 4 Grand Supreme Elders. The True Moon Ancestor was very old. He stared at Lin Tian and walked forward with his hands behind his back. A rainbow appeared under his feet, making him look like an immortal. Little brat, you want to destroy the True Moon Celestial Sect? I'll send you on your way right now. Lin Tian looked up and stared at this person. Without saying anything, the reincarnation diagram rushed up behind him. In an instant, a terrifying aura spread out like a hurricane, causing everyone to tremble in fear. The True Moon Ancestor's expression changed. Facing Lin Tian's reincarnation diagram, he immediately felt a strong sense of death. You! Boom! Chapter 958. Blood splashed in the air. In an instant, everyone around Huai Forest was shocked. Their expressions changed. How? Ancestor, he was actually killed in one hit. The group of True Moon disciples trembled. Their ancestor, a 2nd-level Wuzhen expert, was killed in one hit. Even the 4 Grand Elders of this branch were shocked and couldn't help but tremble. You! Those people stared at Lin Tian. At that moment, fear was present in their eyes. Lin Tian's gaze was icy cold. He had refined a piece of the legendary stone of karmic luck, causing his cultivation to rise by a minor level and reach the 9th level of the Grand Tao. His soul, life essence, and Grand Tao laws had all improved by leaps and bounds. His current combat prowess could be said to be astounding. Under such circumstances, he used the reincarnation physique monarch domain to kill True Moon's ancestor. He raised his head and stared at the last 4 Grand Elders of this bloodline, his eyes filled with coldness. In the next moment, his feet flashed, and in an instant, he appeared in front of the 4 people and raised his golden fist. Boom! He brandished Primal Chaos Empyrean's Primal Chaos Empyrean fist, and the void immediately trembled. Then, cracking sounds could be heard as it shattered. It couldn't withstand the might of his fist at all. He used this fist to envelop a Supreme Elder of True Moon Immortal Sect. The Supreme Elder's expression changed greatly. He quickly used all his abilities and Grand Tao laws to meet Lin Tian's attack. However, it was useless. Lin Tian's Emperor Fist was a supreme ancient technique created by the Primal Chaos Heavenly Sovereign. Combined with his current strength, it could be said to be able to break through hundreds of attacks. It directly crushed all the divine abilities that the True Moon Immortal Sect's Supreme Elder had unleashed. The Supreme Elder was shocked and frightened. He retreated while shouting, "Stop!" Boom! The void trembled once again as if a sacred drum had been struck. With a boom, the unparalleled power of the fist directly enveloped this person, as if a world-destroying star was pressing down on him. No! Poof! Blood splattered. The Supreme Elder of True Moon Immortal Sect was blown apart by the fist. His body and soul were both destroyed. The cultivators of True Moon Immortal Sect were even more frightened. How can this be? They stared at Lin Tian, trembling in fear. Even the dozen Grand Dao Realm experts were no exception. In their bloodline, the powerful old ancestor and Grand Elder were at the Enlightenment realm, but they couldn't even block a single strike from Lin Tian. The other 3 Supreme Elders who survived were also terrified. Their hands and feet were trembling, and their backs were cold. "Activate the killing formation! Activate the divine weapon!" one of them shouted in panic. After saying that, the 3 Supreme Elders frantically formed hand seals. The True Moon Immortal Sect was shaken. Formation runes appeared in the void, emitting a peerless killing aura. At the same time, a beam of light shot out from the depths of the True Moon Celestial Sect. It was a low-grade divine weapon treasure bell. Dao patterns intertwined all over it, emitting shocking light. "Sect protecting killing formation, reserve divine weapon!" The cultivators of True Moon Immortal Sect were pleasantly surprised. They all felt the terrifying power of their sect's killing formation and reserve divine weapon. "Kill! Kill! Kill!" The 3 Supreme Elders of True Moon Immortal Sect roared. The sect protecting killing formation surged, and 10,000 killing lights slashed toward Lin Tian. At the same time, the low-rank divine weapon Grey Bell also rumbled, emitting a resonant bell sound as it pressed down on Lin Tian. This power was not weak, and the killing power was unparalleled. The void rumbled, and many places were shattered. Lin Tian was in the middle of this, and there was no change in his expression. Clanging sounds of swords resounded around him. Dense heaven sword aura appeared, and like a rain of swords, it was also like a destructive storm, ruthlessly spreading in all directions. Crack! With a crisp sound, the True Moon Immortal Sect's divine bell cracked, and then it was directly shattered by the heaven sword aura. At the same time, the dense array runes of the True Moon Immortal Sect in the void were all destroyed in an instant, and the thousands of killing lights disappeared without a trace. The 3 Supreme Elders trembled, and the fear in their eyes intensified. The other ordinary disciples were also terrified. My sect protecting killing formation and divine weapon were destroyed so easily. Is this a dream? All the disciples of True Moon Immortal Sect were trembling in fear. Lin Tian's heaven sword aura surrounded him, and he glanced at the disciples of True Moon Immortal Sect. "Why aren't you leaving?" His voice was extremely cold. "I'll give you 10 breaths of time. After 10 breaths, if you still don't leave, then don't blame me for being merciless and killing you along with the True Moon Immortal Sect." As soon as he finished speaking, the heaven sword aura around him let out another clanging sound, and they all rushed to the sky. There were more than 10,000 of them, and in the blink of an eye, they covered the entire True Moon Immortal Sect. The killing power was unparalleled. Instantly, all the disciples of True Moon Immortal Sect trembled, and their eyes were filled with fear. Then, 3 breaths passed in an instant. I don't want to die. I'll leave the True Moon Immortal Sect." In the Scholar Tree Forest, an ordinary disciple of True Moon Immortal Sect said in a trembling voice. He turned around and ran, madly rushing out of the True Moon Immortal Sect. With the first, there would naturally be a second, and a third. I'm still young. I don't want to die. I'll also leave the True Moon Immortal Sect. I'll also leave. I'll leave immediately. Near the Scholar Tree Forest, all the ordinary disciples of True Moon Immortal Sect ran out of the sect. Then, even the great Dao Realm experts were no exception. All of them rushed into the sky with their fastest speed, and in the blink of an eye, they rushed out of the True Moon Immortal Sect. The people near the Scholar Tree Forest had all personally witnessed Lin Tian's terrifying might. Even the True Moon Old Ancestor, who was the strongest in their faction, was killed in one strike. He killed the Grand Elder as if he was cutting grass, and then he easily destroyed their faction's sect protecting killing formation and divine weapon. Now, he was forcing them to leave, or else he would start a massacre. How would they dare to stay? If they really stayed, they would definitely be crushed like ants, and it would be meaningless. As these disciples rushed out, the other disciples of True Moon Immortal sect were all trembling. This, even the great Tao realm elders are, if we leave, we'll leave as well. If we don't, we'll be killed. These disciples were all trembling, and all of them rushed out. These people all heard Lin Tian's voice telling them to leave the True Moon Immortal sect, and they also saw the dense killing swords above the True Moon Immortal sect. They also felt the terrifying killing intent emitted by these killing swords. At this time, when they saw so many outstanding disciples of their faction fleeing, and even the great Tao realm elders running away, how would they dare to stay? All of them trembled and quickly rushed out. You! The three grand elders stared at Lin Tian, and they couldn't help but tremble. They never thought that the sun god's eye that the True Moon sect master took back would bring about such a devastating disaster to their True Moon Immortal sect. At this moment, they even began to hate the True Moon sect master. Why didn't he carefully investigate the God's Eye child? Why didn't he find out that the God's Eye child had such a terrifying master behind him? One of the grand elders looked at Lin Tian, trembling, and said, "Little brother, please stop now. As long as you are willing to stop, our True Moon Immortal sect will remember your greatness." Clang! An ear-piercing sword chime interrupted this person's words. Lin Tian's eyes were emotionless. With a thought, the heaven-piercing sword in the sky directly pressed down on this person. PFFF! Blood exploded, and the Grand Elder who spoke was instantly killed in body and soul. He tilted his head and looked at the last two Grand Elders of the True Moon Immortal sect. Immediately, the two Grand Elders trembled. At this moment, they didn't say anything. They directly burst out with overflowing divine power, and then directly rushed out of the True Moon Immortal sect. This was really because Lin Tian's battle strength was too terrifying. Killing a first-layer Wuxian expert was like cutting grass. Even if they used all their strength, they couldn't resist at all. Thus, at this time, they directly chose to escape. Escaping might give them a chance to live. Lin Tian stared at the direction the two fled, his eyes cold. Clang! Clang! The sword chime reverberated, and the densely packed heaven-piercing sword pressed down, suppressing all directions. It directly cut off the two's path, completely enveloping the two within. "Little brother, please show mercy!" The two shouted loudly, and at the same time, used powerful divine abilities to resist. However, Lin Tian wouldn't show mercy, and the heaven-piercing sword scripture was the supreme secret technique of the ancient celestial venerables. Its killing power was far from what ordinary divine abilities could resist. The divine abilities and secret techniques these two people used were crushed on the spot, and their bodies were exposed to the heaven-piercing sword. PFFF! PFFF! Two mists of blood exploded, and the two people directly exploded, their bodies and souls extinguished. Outside the True Moon Immortal sect, some of the True Moon Immortal sect's disciples hadn't really escaped yet. They were still carefully looking inside the True Moon Immortal sect. At this moment, seeing this scene, they immediately trembled violently, and fear enveloped every corner of their body. They didn't dare to stay in this place for a moment, and madly rushed away, afraid that Lin Tian would suddenly change his mind and destroy them. The True Moon Immortal sect was completely silent, and only the last one left, the son of the True Moon Immortal sect's leader, was left. At this moment, he was trembling non-stop, and he stared at Lin Tian in horror, and stepped back. Lin Tianji took a step forward, and instantly appeared in front of this person, and with a wave of his left hand, he pulled the person over. "No, don't gouge out my divine eyes!" Chapter 959. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. A divine sword rushed out from between his eyebrows. It was completely formed by his divine consciousness. With a crack, it shattered the young man's killing dagger. He used his left hand to suppress the young man. His right hand revealed the divine light of the Medicine Codex, and the divine light of the dragon pattern. It enveloped the young man's sun eye, which belonged to Yi Tong. Poof! Ah! He used the divine light of the medicine codex and the divine light of the dragon pattern to retrieve Yitong's divine eye amidst the young man's screams. Then, he threw the young man away. With a bang, the young man rolled to the side. He screamed and rolled on the ground. Blood stained half of his face. Lin Tian did not care. Just like in the Yi family, he took out a jade container. It was still filled with the water of the soul-absorbing pool. He used the medicine codex and the divine light of the dragon pattern to protect Yitong's divine eye. He carefully placed it in the jade container. Then, he used the dragon pattern to seal the opening of the container. Then, he carefully put it away. In front of him, the young man screamed. His blood-stained face was distorted with fear. Then, it gradually became hideous. Like a ghost, he pounced on Lin Tian crazily. "Give it back to me! Give me back my divine eye! It's mine! Mine!" Boom! 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 His body was suddenly filled with a ruthless aura. He became like a wild beast. 8 precious weapons rushed out of his body. He lost his mind because of extreme fear. Behind him, wishing crocodiles sneered. Lin Tian's expression was indifferent. He stared coldly at the young man. "Give it back to me!" the young man roared. His eyes were filled with hatred. He pounced on Lin Tian crazily. Lin Tian just stood there and didn't move at all. He just watched as the black-clothed youth pounced towards him. "Again! The divine eye is mine! It's mine!" Half of the young man's face was stained with blood. He roared and rushed to Lin Tian. His divine power was in a mess. It was also at this moment that his body suddenly exploded. He was forcefully blown up by the chaotic divine power in his body. Under normal circumstances, an ordinary cultivator would not have the ability to support 8 prized artifacts at the same time. Not to mention, this is a situation where he has lost his mind. The flow of his divine power is not smooth. Forcibly supporting it under such circumstances is the same as committing suicide. Wishing Crocodile said coldly. With an indifferent expression, Lin Tian turned around and walked to the Wishing Crocodile carrying little Yitong. "Master!" Little Yitong called out when she felt Lin Tian coming to her side. Lin Tian rubbed the little fellow's head and said gently, "Good boy, Master has already taken back your eyes. Once your body is well, I will immediately reattach them for you." The little fellow's eyes were wrapped in white gauze, so she could not see anything. Hearing Lin Tian's words, she nodded obediently. Seeing the little fellow so quiet and obedient, Lin Tian did not feel good. He preferred the little fellow's lively appearance 2 months ago. He looked at the Wishing Crocodile. The Wishing Crocodile nodded slightly and carried the little fellow up into the sky with him. Standing in the sky, Lin Tian looked down at the true moon immortal sect with cold eyes. Clang! 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 The sound of the sword was ear-piercing. Countless towering heaven sword force appeared around him. Each of them was extremely terrifying. They enveloped the entire true moon celestial sect. Then, like a destructive rain of swords, they fell down from the sky. Instantly, all the pavilions, buildings, palaces, arenas, and scriptures of the true moon immortal sect were destroyed. A sea of fire instantly burned, causing the surrounding space to distort. Lin Tianlin looked down coldly and said to the Wishing Crocodile, "Let's go." The Wishing Crocodile nodded slightly. Protecting Liu Yitong on its back with its demonic power, it rose up with Lin Tianyi and flew into the distance. They randomly went in a direction and soon found a secluded cave deep in the mountains. Lin Tian set up 9 sealing arrays around the cave. Then he carried little Yitong down from the Wishing Crocodile's back. "Stay calm. Master will help you adjust your body," he said to little Yitong. "Okay." The little one couldn't see, but she could hear. She nodded obediently and sat down with Lin Tian's help. Lin Tian took action at the right time. His golden divine light surged and quickly entered the little one's body. Instantly, the little one was enveloped by the divine light. Her essence, chi, and spirit began to grow little by little. Soon, it reached a saturation point. However, it was still a far cry from 2 months ago. Moreover, As Lin Tian used his divine power to adjust the little one's body, his face gradually turned pale. "What's wrong?" the whooshing crocodile asked. Lin Tian's voice was low. "The divine eye of the sun is similar to the imperial body. The eyes are inextricably linked to the source of life. His eyes were forcefully dug out, and his life source was damaged. The meridians in his body have withered to a certain extent. The situation inside his body is much more serious than I thought." The whooshing crocodile's face darkened when he heard this. How important was the source of life? It was the foundation of a living being's life. It was also the key to whether a cultivator could become strong. Now that it heard from Lin Tian that the little one's source of life was damaged, and even the meridians in his body had withered to a certain extent, it made it even angrier. "Damn it!" It gritted its teeth. Little Yitong also heard Lin Tian's words. Her body trembled slightly. "Master, I can't be cured?" Lin Tian looked at his first disciple. His eyes were full of love. He gently rubbed the little one's head. "Good girl, don't worry. We've already retrieved the divine eye. No matter what, Master will cure you." He comforted her. "Okay." The little one's voice was very soft and quiet. Outside Lin Tian's body, the golden divine light surged even more. Then, he pointed his finger. A ray of light flew out and entered the little one's forehead. Immediately, the little one trembled. Under the guidance of Lin Tian's golden divine light, blood-red flames jumped out of her body. "This is the Sun Nirvana technique. It comes from the same source as the Sun Heart Sutra that I passed on to you 2 months ago. Now Master will help you circulate it 9 times. Later you will circulate it on your own. Use this technique to nourish your flesh, meridians, and source." Lin Tian Andao. He injected the Sun Nirvana technique into the little one's consciousness. Just like 2 months ago, he used his own divine power to help the little one circulate this sacred technique. This caused the little one's essence, energy, and spirit to gradually become stronger. In this way, he quickly helped the little one circulate the Sun Nirvana technique 9 times. This allowed the little one to slowly circulate this ancient technique on her own. After all, the little one's talent was astonishing. Moreover, the Sun Heart Sutra was in her body. Buzz! For a moment, faint blood-red flames intertwined on the surface of the little one's body. This caused the little one's frail body to faintly grow a little stronger. Lin Tian looked at the little one silently. For a moment, he did not speak. "How can we nurse the little one's body back to normal?" Wishing Crocodile was silent for a moment, then asked in a deep voice. Lin Tian looked at the little one and said, "There is an immortal origin treasure technique in the medicine encyclopedia. I need to find enough spiritual energy and use it as the foundation to reshape his meridians and restore his source." "Can he fully recover?" Wishing Crocodile asked. "Relying solely on the immortal origin treasure technique, there is only a 70% chance of a complete recovery," Lin Tian said. "At that time, I will use a wisp of my source to cleanse him while performing the technique. I can 100% guarantee that he will be completely recovered." He refined a life crystal in the 5th heaven, and then refined a piece of immortal stone of destiny before. His life source has been sublimated twice. In addition, he is the most powerful reincarnated body. With a wisp of his source and the immortal origin treasure technique, he can definitely restore the little one's source and meridians to their original state, or even make him stronger than before. Wishing Crocodile breathed a sigh of relief. "That's good, let's hurry up and find the spiritual energy needed to cast the technique as soon as possible." Lin Tian nodded and said, "Don't worry, let's wait for him to adapt to the Sun Nirvana technique first." With the Sun Heart Sutra and the Sun Nirvana technique protecting his body at the same time, his essence, energy, and spirit will only get better and better. We don't need to worry about time. Whooshing Crocodile didn't say anything. One person and one crocodile silently looked at the little guy who was working hard to operate the Sun Nirvana technique. In the blink of an eye, 2 days passed. On this day, the little guy was already very familiar with the Sun Nirvana technique. Lin Tian carried him on Wishing Crocodile's back, then left the cave with Wishing Crocodile, heading towards some immortal mountains and old forests with rich spiritual energy. It's a pity, we should have collected Lingjing and the immortal veins stored in the True Moon Immortal Sect. Maybe now we can directly restore the little guy's source and meridians. Wishing Crocodile said. I didn't think so much before. Lin Tianao said. Plus, with the True Moon Immortal Sect's level, the amount of Lingjing and immortal veins stored in the True Moon Immortal Sect isn't much. It won't be of much use to restore the little guy's source and meridians with my immortal origin technique. Wishing Crocodile heard this and was slightly moved. How much spiritual energy do you need to perform that technique for the little guy? At least the amount of spiritual energy of 3 flawless source veins. Lin Tianao. Wishing Crocodile was slightly shocked. That much? The amount of spiritual energy of 3 flawless source veins added together was unimaginable. It's very difficult to restore the damaged source of life, so the amount of spiritual energy needed is naturally not small. Lin Tianao. Wishing Crocodile pulled its claws and said in a low voice, Anyway, we have to hurry. Lin Tianao nodded and sped up a little. In the following days, he circulated the dragon burial scripture with all his might and appeared in all kinds of immortal mountains and forests in the heaven domain. He found several 100 kilograms of immortal Lingjing and several 100,000 kilograms of ordinary Lingjing. His harvest was not small. However, it was still far from the amount of spiritual energy he needed to perform the technique for little Yitong. On this day, when Huang Xiaolong had found several caddies of immortal spirit crystals, he walked out of a mountain. Not far away, he sensed 8 shocking waves of divine might. 8 silhouettes appeared one after another, and shockingly powerful waves of God force intertwined around their bodies. Every one of them was in the enlightenment realm, and they were experts from the Coiling Dragon Holy Gate, the 5 Great Sects, and the Dark Heart Sword Sect. Bastard! I finally found you. Chapter 960. 8 figures rushed over, each of them surrounded by extremely powerful divine power fluctuations. The great path precepts intertwined with each other, exuding an extremely oppressive aura. They immediately locked onto Lin Tian with their divine thoughts. Staring at Lin Tian, the 8 of them stared at him with cold eyes. Their intense murderous intent was not concealed at all. Lin Tian stopped in his tracks. Naturally, he knew that the 8 of them wanted to kill him. However, his expression did not change at all. Scram as far as you can. His voice was not loud, but it made the 8 experts' gazes turn even colder. Insolent thing! Don't talk nonsense with him. Attack! Let's spare his life first. Skin him alive, whip his tendons, and whip his soul. We can't let him have it easy. The 8 of them looked cruel. Boom! 8 powerful divine powers surged. The 8 of them attacked at the same time. Each of them stretched out their hands and suppressed all directions, enveloping Lin Tian. At the same time, they pressed on Wishing Crocodile beside Lin Tian and little Yitong on Wishing Crocodile's back. Lin Tian's expression was cold. Without saying anything, he raised his hand and punched forward with his golden iron fist. Boom! Suddenly, the void trembled as if thunder had exploded. Poof! 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 The 8 experts' hands were all shattered. Blood splashed out at the same time, floating in the air. In an instant, the 8 experts' expressions all changed. At this moment, the 8 of them stared at Lin Tian again with a trace of shock in their eyes. The 8 of them were all at the first sky of Enlightenment Realm, but now, their arms were all shattered by one punch from their opponent at the same time. It was also at this moment that a cold sword essence emerged, and the ear-piercing sound of a sword reverberated. Clang! 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 Beside Lin Tian, streaks after streaks of golden sword light appeared. Every one of them was like a general of slaughter, interweaving with waves that could annihilate all things, causing the expressions of the 8 realms of enlightenment to change. At this moment, facing the golden sword light outside Lin Tian's body, the 8 Wuxian experts felt a great threat. With a clang, the sound of the sword rang out again, incomparably ear-piercing. Beside Lin Tian, the densely packed sword she moved together, like a rain of swords slashing towards the 8 powerhouses. In an instant, the space cracked inch by inch and collapsed bit by bit. The 8 of them couldn't help but tremble. This level of sword light was truly too terrifying. They didn't dare to be careless. They all hurriedly activated their great divine abilities to resist. Boom! 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 The space rumbled as the 8 great cultivators unleashed their full power, causing the fluctuations of divine power in this space to become even more turbulent. Moreover, the laws of the great path interweaved, clashing with Lin Tian's dense sword lights, blocking them one by one. Even though the sword lights were all blocked, the hearts of the 8 people still trembled. That was because the 8 of them had attacked together. Moreover, they had already used 90% of their strength. How could he be so powerful? It shouldn't be. Even the god princes and goddesses of the top forces are far from this level. The 8 of them were shocked. Although they had heard that Lin Tian, who had killed the strongest young experts of their respective factions, was very strong, and could kill 8th Heavenly Tao experts, they didn't pay much attention to it. After all, they were all in the Wuzhen realm. But at this moment, facing Lin Tian, their hearts trembled. At this moment, the threat of death rose in all of them. Retreat! We can't stop him! The coiling dragon Holy Gate's Grand Elder shouted. At this time, the coldness in his eyes was replaced by palpitations. The experts from the profound Wind Flame Island and the other large forces who came here naturally saw the gap between them and Lin Tian. They nodded in unison, and while blocking the soaring heaven sword light, they retreated. Come to kill me if you want to, run away if you can't beat me. What do you take me for? A cold voice sounded. Lin Tian's expression was indifferent. With a buzz, the reincarnation diagram rushed out from behind him. With a swoosh, the reincarnation diagram turned into a streak of light and flew out, enveloping the coiling dragon Holy Gate's Grand Elder. The coiling dragon Holy Gate's Grand Elder trembled violently. He could clearly feel the terror of the reincarnation diagram. With a roar, he pushed his strongest divine ability and Grand Tao to resist the reincarnation diagram. However, the reincarnation diagram was Lin Tian's king's domain divine ability. With his current strength, how could it be so easy to block it? The divine ability and Grand Tao that the coiling dragon Holy Gate's Grand Elder had raised shattered in an instant. In an instant, the coiling dragon Holy Gate's Grand Elder revealed a look of fear, and he shouted, "Little friend, please, pooh!" The reincarnation diagram shone brightly, and its momentum did not diminish. It cut off the Grand Elder's words, and directly crushed his body and soul. Such a scene was too shocking, and the other 7 people couldn't help but tremble. How can this be? An expert of the Enlightenment realm was killed by a young cultivator of the 9th heaven of the Grand Tao with one blow. In an instant, the 7 people were overwhelmed by fear. Run! One of the people from the profound Gale Flame Island shouted, and he directly rushed into the distance. At this time, the other 6 people naturally didn't dare to stop for a moment. They were all frightened by Lin Tian's terrifying battle strength. Lin Tian stared at the 7 people who were escaping, and he stood quietly in the same place. His gaze was cold and indifferent. Buzz! The reincarnation diagram shone brightly, and it expanded under his will, turning into a huge diagram with a diameter of 10 zhang. It enveloped the 7 people who were escaping, and every inch of space around them was sealed. The 7 people's faces changed drastically, and each of them raised their divine abilities in an attempt to break open the sealed space. However, it was useless. The reincarnation diagram was too strong, and with their strength in the first heavenly Tao realm, they couldn't break it. Little friend, have mercy! The Dark Heart Sword Sex expert shouted. The other 6 people also trembled as they begged for mercy. None of them wanted to die. Lin Tian's expression didn't change. The Tao patterns on the reincarnation diagram flickered, and a dense killing light was released in an instant, pressing down mightily. His number 1 disciple was still living in the darkness. His source energy was damaged, and the meridians in his body had withered greatly. This caused him to be in a bad mood. Now that these people were chasing after him to kill him, how could he show mercy? For a moment, the light emitted by the reincarnation diagram became even stronger, as if the Milky Way was falling from the sky. No! The 7 people shouted in horror, and some even burned their life origin to resist. However, it was useless. Under the suppression of the strongest king physique in history, Wan Yu, his divine power was unparalleled and could suppress everything. Puff, 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 puff! 7 bloody mists exploded. Under the reincarnation diagram, the 7 people were all crushed at the same time, and their divine souls also disappeared. Suddenly, the place quieted down. "You're courting death," Wishing Crocodile said. "Go," Lin Tian said. Killing these 8 people was nothing at all, so he didn't care. After leaving this place, he soon stepped into another immortal mountain and used the dragon burial scripture to measure the ground. After spending some effort, he found about 13 kilograms of immortal Lingjing. Afterwards, he left the immortal mountain and walked to other places to dig out spirit meridians, immortal meridians, and ordinary Lingjing. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 days passed. In more than 10 days, Lin Tian dug out more than 100 kilograms of immortal Lingjing, hundreds of thousands of kilograms of ordinary Lingjing, more than 10 immortal meridians, and dozens of ordinary spirit meridians. His harvest was very shocking, but he was still far from reconstructing Little Yitong's origin. After all, it was not easy to reconstruct the origin, and it would naturally consume a lot of spiritual energy. "Kid, hurry up and gather the spiritual energy for the technique as soon as possible. Don't let little Munchkin stay in the darkness for too long," Wishing Crocodile said. "Got it." Lin Tian looked at Little Yitong on Wishing Crocodile's back and rubbed the little guy's head. "Be good, bear with it a little longer. Master will soon let you see again." In fact, he could connect the eye of the sun to the little guy now so that the little guy could see again. However, the little guy's physical condition was very bad now. If he connected it now, it would affect the power of the divine eye and the little guy's future cultivation path. Therefore, he had to completely recuperate the little guy's body before he could connect the divine eye. "Okay." The white gauze wrapped around Little Yitong's eyes had already been changed by Lin Tian. Hearing Lin Tian's words, it nodded obediently. Lin Tian rubbed the little guy's head again tenderly and walked to other mountains with rich spiritual energy. In the blink of an eye, another few days passed. During these days, he explored the immortal mountains and forests with the dragon burial scripture and found more Lingjing. On this day, when he stepped out of another mountain, he saw a group of cultivators in front of him. They were hurrying in the same direction, and the sound of discussion could be heard. "The rumors are true. Did they really find a huge ancient ruin? Of course it's true. A few powerful rogue cultivators accidentally found it, and then the news was leaked. It's said that immortal light interweaved and rushed out from the ruin from time to time. The spiritual energy there is shockingly rich. Some powerful cultivators said that there must be a complete origin vein inside, and there must be more than one. Not only that, I also heard that some strange people who are proficient in the Tao of tomb burial have also rushed there. After some observation and exploration, they said that there might be a huge tomb inside. It's at least the burial cave of a Nirvana realm cultivator. There might be incredible ancient scriptures and powerful divine weapons inside. Hurry up, that place has been discovered for 2 days. Many people have already gone there. Moreover, it's said that powerful cultivators from the top forces have also rushed there. If we're late, we'll have nothing left." This group of cultivators all sped up and quickly rushed far away. Not far away, Lin Tian and Wishing Crocodile stood together, their eyes interweaving with a bright light. "Brat Lin, go and take a look. Maybe there really are a few complete origin veins in that so-called ancient ruin. After finding them, we can directly reshape Shaobutian's origin, and then connect the divine eye back," Wishing Crocodile said. Lin Tian nodded. "Of course." At this time, when he heard that there might be a few complete origin veins in ancient ruins, he naturally had to make a trip. Immediately, He and Wishing Crocodile both soared into the air and walked down in the direction that the group of cultivators had just left. In the blink of an eye, 3 hours had passed. At this time, the man and Crocodile stopped. In front of them appeared a magnificent river. It was unknown how long and wide it was. From time to time, immortal light would rush up from the bottom of the river, and the interweaving spiritual energy was extremely dense. And around this big river, there was a dense crowd of cultivators. Many people were rushing into the big river, and in the blink of an eye, they disappeared into the river. That ruin is under this big river? Chapter 961. There were many cultivators around the river, and many of them were rushing to the bottom of the river. From time to time, immortal light would rush up from the bottom of the river, intertwining with astonishing spirit chi. Whooshing Crocodile could not help but be slightly surprised. Lin Tian looked at the river, and the light of the dragon patterns intertwined in his eyes. It was as if he was shrouded in a layer of immortal light, mysterious and hazy. There's a barrier at the bottom of the river, and under the barrier should be the so-called ruins. There's indeed astonishing spirit chi, he said. He controlled the dragon burial scripture, and when he was close, he could see many things just by the light of the dragon patterns in his eyes. Wishing Crocodile stared at the bottom of the river and asked Lin Tiandao, "Have you found a complete source vein?" "Not yet, but it's very likely that there's a complete source vein below. We'll have to enter the ruins below to find it." Lin Tiandao. At that moment, the cultivators around the river were in an uproar as they stared at the 2 men and 1 woman who had arrived. The 2 men and 1 woman were not traveling together. Instead, they came from 3 different directions. Their clothes were extraordinary, and their chi was astonishing. The divine son of the 10,000 Swords Mountain, the sacred son of the 9 Zither divine sect, and the princess of the Yao family are all here. Some cultivators were shocked. Looking around, the divine son of the 10,000 Swords Mountain was dressed in black, and his face was as sharp as a knife. He had a threatening heroic spirit. The sacred son of the 9 Zither divine sect was dressed in luxurious clothes, and he had a faint smile on his face, giving off a warm feeling. The princess of the Yao family was very beautiful, and the divine power around her was very pure and shocking. They're all at the 3rd heaven of the great Tao. They're still so young, but they've already reached such heights. They're true geniuses. As expected of the young sovereigns of the 3 top factions in this heaven realm. Looking at the 3 of them, many cultivators near the river could not help but tremble. A senior expert in a green robe looked at the 3 of them and said emotionally, "In this world, there's probably no one in the same generation as them who's a match for them. They've all been left far behind." "Old senior, you're wrong." At the side, a young cultivator couldn't help but say, "Some time ago, there was a ruthless young man who slaughtered the holy princes of the Dark Heart Sword sect, the Ink Feather Origin Hall, and the Rainbow Blood Immortal sect, as well as the strongest experts of the younger generation of the 5 great immortal sects, including the Coiling Dragon Holy Gate. He killed dozens of Grand Tao experts from the 8 sects, including those at the 8th Heavenly Tao realm. He was much stronger than these 3. "What? There is such a person in the younger generation?" "Of course there is. Senior, were you in seclusion before this? How could you not know about this?" The young cultivator spoke, then lowered his voice and said, "Moreover, there are more rumors about that person." "Not just a little? There are more?" The green-robed elder was shocked. The young cultivator nodded and said in a low voice, "5 days ago, someone passed by the True Moon Immortal sect and found that the sect had been destroyed. Then, he found a disciple who used to belong to the True Moon Immortal sect. From his description, he found out that the person who destroyed the True Moon Immortal sect was that ruthless young man. Subsequently, 3 days ago, several bloodstains and bone fragments were discovered outside a mountain range. Experts from the Dark Heart Sword sect, the Coiling Dragon Holy Gate, and the other 4 great immortal sects rushed to the scene. From these bloodstains, they discovered the auras of the Wujin experts they had sent to hunt down that young man. They suspected that they were killed by that young man. Lin Tian had destroyed the True Moon Immortal sect and killed the Wuzhen experts of the Dark Heart Sword sect and the other 8 great immortal sects. These 2 incidents were discovered a few days ago, and many cultivators already knew about it. The green-robed elder was shocked when he heard this. The other cultivators heard their conversation and heard that they were talking about Lin Tian. They couldn't help but feel nervous. That's a ruthless young man. When I went to the 5 Immortals' Peak to watch the grand competition of the younger generation of the 5 major immortal sects, I saw that ruthless person killed the strongest young experts of the 5 major immortal sections. That kind of figure is simply unstoppable. He's a terrifying person. It's said that the Dark Heart Sword sect, the Ink Feather Origin Hall, the Rainbow Blood Immortal sect, and the Coiling Dragon Holy Gate have all kept quiet and didn't immediately send experts to kill that person. They are really afraid of that ruthless young man. In the hands of that ruthless young man, the 8 great immortal sects suffered heavy losses. These cultivators trembled. In the distance, Lin Tian and Wishing Crocodile stood together. Hearing the discussions of these cultivators, their expressions didn't change. They didn't care about the 10,000 Swords Mountain Divine Sun and the 9 Zither Divine Sects Holy Sun. Instead, their eyes fell on the princess of the Yao family. This was because he heard from Wishing Crocodile that the weapon control technique he mastered was a secret technique of the Yao family. Now that he came to the 6th heaven and saw the strongest descendant of the Yao family, he naturally couldn't help but take a second look. Seeing his action, Wishing Crocodile naturally knew what he was thinking at this time, but he didn't say anything. Boom! At this moment, the surface of the river suddenly boiled, and a stronger immortal light rushed up, and the spiritual energy fluctuations became stronger. Suddenly, the surrounding cultivators were shocked. They didn't have time to be surprised by the appearance of the princess of the Yao family and the Holy Sun. They rushed towards the river again, all wanting to enter the ancient ruins below to search for treasures as soon as possible. After all, there will definitely be treasures in such ancient ruins. If they can find them, it will definitely increase their combat power greatly. It is very likely that they will soar into the sky and become the strongest cultivator in the world. It is naturally very tempting for ordinary cultivators. Whoosh! 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 3 whistling sounds sounded. The 10,000 Swords Mountain Divine Sun, the 9 Zither Divine Sects Holy Sun, and the princess of the Yao family, all had dense divine light intertwined around their bodies. At this moment, they all shot into the river, disappearing in the blink of an eye. In the distance, a glimmer of light flashed in Lin Tian's eyes, and he said to Wishing Crocodile, "Let's go." Wishing Crocodile nodded. He used his demonic power to protect little Yitong, who was on his back, and followed Lin Tian into the river in the blink of an eye. After entering the river, the man and the crocodile could clearly feel that the spiritual energy in the river was very dense. They dove all the way down, and not long after, they broke through the mud at the bottom of the river, creating an invisible barrier. Buzz! Lin Tian made his move. He wrapped Wishing Crocodile and little Yitong with dragon patterns. He took a step forward and directly passed through the 5 elements barrier. Suddenly, they appeared in an extremely spacious underground world. The soil was a bit reddish-yellow, and there were many mountains. There were many strange plants growing, and there were faint roars of beasts coming from the mountains, intertwined with very strong demonic power. Lin Tian looked at this scene and felt a bit emotional. He felt that nature was really mysterious. There was actually such an ancient site under an ordinary river. There were large mountains and old forests, and there were even powerful demonic beasts. It was really astonishing. However, even though he was rueful, he wasn't surprised. After all, he had even seen the Book of Life and Death that was rumored among the people. A large ruin under a great river wasn't anything special. There were many similar places in the world. He and Wishing Crocodile passed through the invisible barrier and landed on the surface of the ancient site. Strands of dragon patterns immediately spread out from the soles of their feet. He used the dragon burial scripture to measure this ancient site and find out if there really was a complete source vein in this ancient site. In the blink of an eye, dozens of breaths passed. He suddenly raised his head and looked towards the east of the ancient site. Strands of light flashed in his eyes. You found the source vein? Wishing Crocodile knew that Lin Tian was using the dragon burial scripture to search for the source vein in this underground site. He could not help but ask when he saw the light in Lin Tian's eyes. Found it. Lin Tian nodded and looked towards the east of the site. There are roughly 4 of them. Now that his cultivation had reached the 9th heavenly layer, his control of the dragon burial scripture had naturally become more proficient. The dragon patterns could extend very far, and his perception of Lin Jing's source vein had become stronger. Great! Let's go! Wishing Crocodile immediately said. Lin Tian nodded and led the way, quickly heading towards the east of the ancient site. There were already quite a few cultivators gathered in the ruins. As he rushed deeper into the ruins, naturally, many cultivators noticed him, and all of them turned pale with fright. Isn't this that ruthless person? It's rumored that he destroyed the True Moon Immortal Sect and killed the Wuzhen experts sent by the Dark Heart Sword Sect and the other 8 great forces. Why is he here now? The hearts of many cultivators palpitated, and when they saw Lin Tian, they all retreated in unison, afraid that they would accidentally offend Lin Tian. How could a person who could kill a Wuzhen realm elite and even destroy a super-large sect not be feared? Lin Tian did not care about these people. His footsteps did not change as he continued to head towards the east of the ancient site. Boom! At this moment, a shocking demonic aura came from a mountain not far in front of him. Dozens of powerful demonic beasts rushed out from the mountain. These dozens of demonic beasts were very powerful. After rushing out of the mountain, they coincidentally saw Lin Tian and directly pounced towards Lin Tian. Their powerful demonic aura shattered the void. Lin Tian was expressionless. His footsteps did not change, and his speed did not change. Only a golden sword ray appeared around his body. It clanged and slashed forward like a rain of swords. For a moment, slashing sounds could be heard as the dozens of powerful demonic beasts were all killed in the blink of an eye. This scene fell into the eyes of the group of cultivators behind him. They could not help but tremble. Among those demonic beasts, there seemed to be existences comparable to the Great Path Realm. There seemed to be 5 or 6 of them, but they were all killed by him as if he was cutting grass. He's really as terrifying as the rumors say. This combat strength is simply... These cultivators stared at Lin Tian and felt a chill run down their spines. In front of them, Lin Tian's expression was normal. He let the wishing crocodile follow behind him and slightly increased his speed. After passing through one mountain after another, they stopped in front of a stone wall after an hour. The 4 source veins you mentioned just now are here? The wishing crocodile asked. Lin Tian nodded. His right leg shook slightly, and a layer of soil in front of him collapsed with the dragon pattern. Immediately, a powerful spiritual energy rushed up. Looking at it, one could vaguely see 4 large dragons entwined under the collapsed soil. The spiritual energy was so dense that it could not be dispersed. Chapter 962. In response to Wishing Crocodile's words, Lin Tianwei nodded slightly. There were now 4 complete source veins entwined together in this place. He could now reconstruct Little Yitong's source energy and meridians before reattaching the divine eye. He raised his right hand and moved his 5 fingers at the same time. Strands of formation patterns intertwined. It took him about 2 hours to engrave 3 grand sealing formations, a 7th level immortal thunder killing formation, and a corner of the eternal killing formation. Done! He looked towards Wishing Crocodile and said, I'll bring him in to perform the technique. You stay here for the time being. All right, hurry up, Wishing Crocodile said. Lin Tianwei nodded. He carried Little Yitong from Wishing Crocodile's back and enveloped Little Yitong with his golden divine power. Then, he stepped into the 4 source veins with a single step. For a moment, rich spiritual energy immediately drowned him and Little Yitong. Originally, Little Yitong's current cultivation level would not have been able to withstand the boundless spiritual energy of the source veins. However, with his golden divine power protecting her and his personal supervision, there was naturally no problem in entering the source veins. Master will now reconstruct your source energy and meridians before reattaching the divine eye. This process will be a little painful, so you must bear with it, he gently said to little Yitong. Little Yitong was very obedient and nodded obediently after hearing this. Lin Tianwei took a deep breath and brought little Yitong to the center of the 4 source veins. Golden divine power enveloped the little fellow as strands of pill light gradually surged out from his body. He raised his hands and formed a seal. Pill imprints floated out from his body as strands of pill runes spread out from his 10 fingers and intertwined in the surroundings, quickly forming a pill heart divine diagram. This was the pill heart divine diagram of the immortal origin treasure technique recorded in the medicine encyclopedia. At this moment, it completely enveloped little Yitong and emitted strands of divine light. Activate. After the imprint of the elixir diagram of celestial source was completed, his eyes shone with a faint glow as he uttered a word softly. Immediately, the pill diagram enveloping little Yitong trembled slightly as an even brighter light erupted from it, drawing in the surrounding source vein spirit chi. The source vein spirit chi did not directly flow into Yitong's body. Instead, it first entered the immortal source elixir diagram. After passing through the diagram, it interweaved into elixir Dao chains before entering Yitong's body, causing little Yitong to violently tremble. Be good and bear with it, Lin Tian said softly. He was using the immortal origin treasure technique to reconstruct little Yitong's source meridians. The process would be very painful. At this time, the technique had truly begun. Little Yitong naturally felt intense pain. Yes! Little Yitong's body trembled violently, but she did not cry out in pain. Wishing Crocodile stood outside the 4 source veins. When he saw little Yitong trembling nonstop, he naturally knew that little Yitong was in a lot of pain. He could not help but say, Brat Lin, slow down the technique's progress a little. We don't lack time right now. Let the little one suffer less. Lin Tian nodded. He used his mind to control the immortal origin treasure technique, causing the light emitted by the immortal origin elixir diagram to gradually become gentler. The spirit chi from the surrounding source veins also gradually slowed down, causing little Yitong's body to no longer tremble violently. He used the immortal origin treasure technique as a formation and the spirit chi from the source veins as a guide to interweave numerous elixir Dao seals, creating immortal origin treasure chains that continuously entered little Yitong's body to repair little Yitong's damaged source and withered meridians. Buzz. For a time, the space flickered with a gentle light as the spirit chi from the surrounding source veins slowly weakened. At the same time, little Yitong's essence, energy, and spirit continued to rise. Her blood and chi also became stronger little by little. In the blink of an eye, a total of 7 days passed. On this day, more than half of the 4 source veins had been consumed, causing the spirit chi to become much weaker. However, Yitong's essence, energy, and spirit were more than 10 times stronger than before. Her blood and chi were also more than 10 times stronger than before. The withered meridians in her body had completely recovered, while her damaged source had recovered by 70%. Good! You're almost completely healed, Wishing Crocodile said in a low voice. Lin Tian supported the celestial origin treasure technique, and many elixir seals circled around his body. At this moment, he formed another seal and directly took out a strand of his reincarnation origin, which quickly entered little Yitong's body. Then, it turned into immortal light and entered little Yitong's origin. Immediately, little Yitong trembled violently. Astonishing celestial radiance radiated from his body. His aura skyrocketed in an instant, like an erupting volcano. Buzz. Lin Tian formed a seal and used the immortal origin treasure technique. At the same time, he used a wisp of his reincarnation essence to cleanse little Yitong's life source, causing little Yitong's life source to become incomparably bright as it began to recover at an astonishing speed. Soon, another 3 days passed. Little Yitong's life source was completely healed. It became even brighter than before and vaguely more powerful than before. Under the cleansing of Lin Tian's reincarnation essence, it completed a small sublimation. A faint light flashed across Lin Tian's eyes. He naturally knew all of this very clearly. He inwardly said, "Very good." He maintained the immortal origin treasure technique, and used the source vein's spirit chi to stabilize and comb the little fellow's flesh source. He only stopped after 6 hours. With a wave of his right hand, he took out 2 jade containers. They were filled with clear and transparent soul-absorbing pond water. A god's eye was soaked in each of the containers, and densely packed dragon inscriptions sealed the openings of the containers. "Master will now reconnect your god's eye. Remember, remain calm," he said to little Yitong in a deep voice. Reconstructing the source meridians was very important, but the process of reconnecting the god's eye was even more important. There was no room for error. Little Yitong could not see at the moment, but she could hear the solemnity in Lin Tian's voice. She was very obedient and nodded earnestly. Lin Tian took a deep breath. With a wave of his right hand, the white gauze wrapped around little Yitong's eyes immediately shattered and scattered. The 2 jade containers floated beside him. He raised his hand to form a seal and executed a dozen divine arts from the medicine encyclopedia in succession. Together with the spirit chi from the surrounding source vein, they slowly merged into Yitong's eyes to first nourish the pupils that had lost their eyes. Very quickly, after several dozen breaths, he opened the 2 jade containers with a thought. Using the light of the dragon inscriptions and the medicine encyclopedia's immortal light, he simultaneously took out the 2 gods' eyes. After unblocking Yitong's eyes, the 2 gods' eyes slowly sank into them. Immediately, the 2 gods' eyes returned to their original position under his extremely careful control and reconnected with Yitong's pupils. Then, he directly took out the reincarnation diagram of the king's territory and hovered above little Yitong's head. Wisps of divine light fell, and some entered Yitong's eyes, guiding the 2 gods' eyes to truly connect with the source meridians. Just like that, the reincarnation diagram flickered. Lin Tian's expression was solemn. In the blink of an eye, a full 18 hours had passed. At this moment, little Yitong trembled violently, and could not help but cry out in pain. However, an incomparably resplendent divine light appeared in his eyes, forcefully illuminating the space within a radius of 30 meters. Moreover, an extremely powerful aura overflowed from him. At this moment, as far as the eye could see, the little guy's eyes were shockingly bright. His entire body was surrounded by divine light, like 2 blazing little suns. Vaguely, strands of innate Tao marks intertwined and appeared from his divine eyes. The initial awakening of the god's eyes is equivalent to the initial monarch physique. Moreover, these eyes seem to be more powerful than the previous god's eyes, Wishing Crocodile said. Lin Tian's eyes were intertwined with a faint light. At this moment, he retreated a lot, and the reincarnation diagram also withdrew on its own and returned to his body. The phoenix's nirvana can transcend the primordial state. The little fellow's eyes have been recovered, and now they are perfectly compatible with her body. It's similar to the phoenix's nirvana, he said. Wishing Crocodile nodded. In short, this is a good thing. Little Munchkin's future will become even more resplendent than before. Boom! In the origin meridian, little Yitong's eyes not only emitted astonishing divine light, but her life essence also lit up. There was a golden light that was identical to Lin Tian's emitted from her body, turning into a golden pillar of light that was 5 feet in diameter. It pierced into the sky, shocking many people in this space. Many powerful cultivators couldn't help but look over. This fluctuation is clearly true essence, but how can the array and aura be so powerful? This doesn't make sense. Who the hell is emitting such golden light? Many cultivators were shocked. In the origin meridian, light swirled around little Yitong's body. More and more innate Tao runes appeared in her eyes, and her eyes grew brighter and brighter. This kind of Tao pattern was the innate Tao pattern of the Divine Sun Eye. Now that the Divine Sun Eye had just been formed, the Tao pattern inside it was like some kind of seal had been unlocked, revealing a part of it, giving people a kind of magical feeling. At the same time, the golden light around little Yutong's body grew even more astonishing. The surrounding origin meridian spirit began to enter her body little by little, causing her essence, spirit, and cultivation to rise at an astonishing speed. The Sun Heart Sutra you passed to her is circulating on its own, causing little Munchkin to subconsciously cultivate. At this rate, with the help of the origin meridian essence here, she can even reach the immortal stage in one go. Wishing Crocodile said. With the remaining origin meridian essence here, she can indeed reach the immortal stage in one go. However, she can't raise her cultivation level by so many levels at once. Her Tao foundation will become loose, and it will affect her future, Lin Tian said. Everything was about the process and gradual progress. Although cultivating with the origin meridian spirit she would not have any side effects, raising one's cultivation level by too many levels at once was definitely not a good thing for the cultivator. Indeed, she can't raise her cultivation level by too many levels at once, Wishing Crocodile said. At most, she can reach the knowledge sea stage. That's what I think too, Lin Tian Andao. Going directly from the body refining realm to the spiritual sea realm was, in fact, an increase of many cultivation levels. However, little Yutong now had the divine eye of the sun, so she could adapt to this speed. It would not have any effect on her Taoist foundation later on. He and Wishing Crocodile stood to the side, silently watching little Yutong. Very quickly, a total of 9 days passed. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.